Chapter 15:15. Zhang Ying looked at Li Zongjio, who was still sitting on the edge of the boat and fishing. He was also thinking in his heart. Could it be that only by becoming such an indifferent existence could one stand at the peak of this world? Li Zongjio in front of him. The name of the evil lord. In fact, Zhang Ying and the others had already heard of him. For this legendary big shot, although he seemed to be relatively indifferent now compared to other big shots, he was already more approachable. At least Li Zongjio's method was cruel. But it was also to help these rookies in training. Zhang Ying and the others had also gone through such training in the past. To be able to walk out of this hell of life and death, one would become a true warrior. Suddenly, Li Zong raised his head. Zhang Ying and the others quickly looked over, still worried that Li Zongjio might have some orders. Of course, they had to be ready at any time. He killed 100 of them so quickly. Li Zongjio's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise, then he focused his mind on this outstanding person. Some people were able to sacrifice their lives within an hour. However, some people were able to slay 100 abyssal tribe beings in just half an hour. This was the gap. Some things were indeed innate. It's a little fatty. Who is this little fatty? Li Zongjio directly called Zhou Jing back, then projected the appearance of this little fatty in front of him. Oh, it's him. He usually keeps a low profile, but he's a ruthless person. His name is Luo Fugue. Zhou Jing said. He was specially recruited. He seems to have inherited the Titan race's bloodline. He's very strong. How can a person have children with the Titan race? Li Zongjio was also stunned. It's the origin soul inheritance. Understood. This Luo Fugue's performance is not bad. Li Zongjio said. Obviously, he was prepared to train this Luo Fugue well. After all, the potential of this generation of youths was obviously much better than the previous generation. Li Zongjio had thought about it before. In his previous life, he had already cultivated to that age. There weren't many people who could cross 3,000 years without dying. Those of the same generation as Li Zongjio did not rise up either. Zhang Biao was the only one who was familiar with the story. After all, Zhang Biao's tribe had always been well managed, and there had never been any problems. That was why Zhang Biao was still alive. Otherwise, they would soon disappear in the long river of this world. Of course, he did have some real talent. Otherwise, she would have been squeezed out of the company long ago. One was Luo Fugue and the other was Xia Shui. In order to motivate these people, Li Zongjio directly transformed into a shadow and instantly appeared in front of Luo Fugue. Luo Fugue held a shield in one hand and a stone hammer in the other. When the person in front of him appeared, Luo Fugue was shocked. However, he still smashed the hammer in his hand down like a conditioned reflex. Boom! The hammer hit nothing. However, a huge hole appeared in the ground. This ordinary attack had such great power. If one's strength had not reached the Yuan King realm, they would not have been able to withstand this attack. Oh, your strength is not bad. Li Zongjio glanced at him. Luo Fugue also saw clearly that the person in front of him was Evil Lord. Senior Evil Lord. Luo Fugue was shocked. Could it be that his innate strength was against the rules? Was he going to lose his qualification? Everyone listen up. Luo Fugue took the lead to kill 100 abyssal tribe members, so he will be rewarded with an additional grade 5 elixir pill. Li Zongjio's voice spread throughout the entire Golden Island. Everyone on the island also heard Li Zongjio's voice. Instantly, everyone was excited by the reward. There was actually such an additional reward. Why didn't you say so earlier? How could these people understand Li Zongjio's temper? Anyway, he was a super divine alchemist. Rewarding him with elixirs was not a problem at all. Therefore, as long as they gave Li Zongjio an excuse, they would be rewarded even if they were in a good mood. After the announcement to the people on Golden Island, Li Zongjio also took out an elixir pill. This is a grade 5 elixir pill, the Overlord's Colossal Cauldron pill. After you consume it, you will be in the Overlord state for 3 minutes. It can increase your strength by 3 times in an instant. Li Zongjio said. Then he threw the elixir pill in his hand over. Luo Fugue's eyes lit up when he caught the elixir pill that Li Zongjio threw over. This is amazing. Luo Fugue was obviously a little too excited. Suddenly, two strong gusts of wind came from behind. Two Abyssal Tribe members waved their sickles and smashed towards Luo Fugue's head. When Luo Fugue felt the gusts of wind, he subconsciously turned around and raised the shield in his hand. Bang! Luo Fugue was sent flying by the powerful force. He rolled a few times on the ground. Even the weapon in his hand fell to the side. Only the shield was left in his hand. Luo Fugue immediately got up and put away the elixir pill in his hand. At the same time, he looked in the direction of Li Zongjio. The latter had disappeared. Obviously, in the process of giving out rewards, they would not give you any protection. Fortunately, I reacted quickly. You two dogs actually dared to disturb my mood. Luo Fugue, who was originally happy, was directly interrupted by the sudden appearance of the two Abyssal Tribe members. The two Abyssal Tribe members did not understand what Luo Fugue was saying. In an instant, they stood up and charged towards Luo Fugue. However, Luo Fugue also used the shield in his hand as a weapon. Bang! In an instant, the two Abyssal Tribe members were sent flying. Li Zongjio did not care about Luo Fugue's battle. Even if he was killed just now, he did not feel bad. Who asked you to lower your guard in such a situation? You are really looking for death. I said I would give you a reward, but I did not say I would let you lower your guard. On the other side, Xia Shui's killing speed had increased by a lot. Li Zongjio thought for a moment. In order to stimulate the desire of these people to fight and achieve the effect of the crazy trial, he immediately waved his hand and a wave of yuan energy condensed in the sky above the Golden Island. Then, a few big words gradually appeared. Luo Fugue, 102 Xia Shui, 89 Ma Luo Tian, 73. Obviously, this was a trap. Li Zongjio's mental energy was too strong. Not only did it suppress the high-level Abyssal Tribe members on the Golden Island, but it also locked on the situation of each person. At the same time, it was directly projected in the sky so that everyone could see the specific situation of the top three. Those who can maintain the top three will receive an additional reward every 2 hours. Chapter 15-16. When they heard Li Zongjio's words, they were all stunned, especially when it came to the island. Xia Shui, as the eldest senior sister, was actually defeated by Luo Fugue. She felt a little embarrassed. Luo Fugue, who had obtained the pill, would obviously have a stronger amplification effect. His killing speed would also be faster. Li Zongjio's method of training was something that everyone would like. Even a piece of trash would have a lot of motivation. On this Golden Island, they would definitely have a good fight. As expected, when the island appeared, the speed of these people killing the abyssal race became even faster. Out of the 30 people, 5 were eliminated at the beginning. Now that 2 hours had passed, another 10 people were eliminated. Zhou Zheng was also continuously bringing these people out. Li Zongjio saw that these people seemed to be having it too easy, so he simply let out some half-step primitive emperors to rush out. Therefore, many people couldn't take it anymore. These people who were brought out could only be said to be a little unlucky, but it didn't mean that they were completely useless. Li Zongjio also wanted to see how these people would perform after failing. Not everyone could always succeed. Even in the face of failure, they would be able to stand up bravely. In the future, they would also have greater achievements. It just depended on whether these young people could adjust their mentality. He often fought and killed outside. Now that he was suddenly training these young people, he felt very good. At least it felt very good. Another 2 hours passed. Xia Shui was in first place. He had finally made it to the first place. Li Zongjio also rewarded her with a pill. However, the second place was no longer Luo Fugue. It was a relatively handsome young man. He was also good at archery. His name was Wang Jian. It was such a simple and direct name. At the beginning, Wang Jian didn't choose to take the initiative to attack and kill the abyssal race. Instead, he was looking for a favorable terrain and set up many traps on the Golden Island. Using this method, he killed the abyssal race one by one. He was a very strategic young man. Luo Fugue was barely in third place, but he often fell down and was replaced by other people. Therefore, there were often situations where people were replaced. Less than 2 hours passed. The three of them were also rewarded with medicinal pills from Li Zongjio. It seems that these people have adapted well. 10 hours later, there were only 5 people left on Golden Island. They were Xia Shui, Luo Fugue, Wang Jian, Ma Luo Tian, and a girl named Chu Wen. All 5 of them performed well. Even Xia Shui, who was ranked first, had already killed more than 400. It was going to be close to 500 soon. But soon night fell. It was almost an entire day of fighting. For them, it was already the most tiring time. Basically, among these 5 people, the third place was also rotated once, so they also received the medicinal pill as a reward. However, Xia Shui, who was ranked at the top, had a total of 5 pills. What Li Zongjio saw at present was that Xia Shui had not used this medicinal pill yet. Obviously, he was preparing to use it in the final sprint. The people on the main warship were also stunned. They didn't expect Xia Shui and the others to be so strong. Some of them were eliminated in less than half an hour, but Xia Shui and the others had all the way to the present. Moreover, they were still persevering. Li Zongjio often condensed some wonderful scenes directly in the sky with his Yuan energy and presented them in front of these rookies. It was also to let these people know thoroughly. These guys who were usually low-key were actually so powerful. Xia Shui also felt the real pressure for the first time. These guys usually don't show their strength, but now they are so powerful. They want to checkmate me. Xia Shui suddenly felt the pressure of her position as the first place was particularly great. If she didn't work hard, she really couldn't withstand these people. After the pressure of these people chasing her, Xia Shui also felt that her combat experience had become richer and her body was filled with fighting spirit. Li Zongjio looked at the darkening sky and suddenly thought of a plan. Then he directly sent a voice transmission and suppressed all the abyssal race on the Golden Island, so that they couldn't move. Rest for tonight. All the abyssal race will be suppressed in place. You can recover on your own. When they heard Li Zongjio's voice transmission in the sky, Xia Shui and the others felt relieved. Xia Shui and the others also let out a sigh of relief. They thought in their hearts that at least this evil dominator was still very humane. He knew to let them rest for a while. One must know that after a series of battles, even machines couldn't withstand it. It was really too difficult. Wang Jian was originally less than 20 meters away from an abyssal race. Just as he was about to engage in close combat, the abyssal race suddenly stopped. Then he was directly smashed into the ground by a strange force and could no longer move. Then he heard Li Zongjio's voice transmission. I see. He looked at his red and swollen right hand. Fortunately, the intensity of his usual training was about the same. Otherwise, this hand of his would probably be crippled. This evil lord was really evil. He didn't even let them take a breather. As soon as they got off the ship, they started fighting. Until now, they hadn't eaten anything at all. In fact, they were about to collapse. Now, they finally had some time to rest. It was also good for them to rest and adjust their condition. Of course, the people on the ship also heaved a sigh of relief. In fact, they were also very nervous as they looked at the intense battle before them. Just watching the battle was already so nervous. Needless to say, those who were participating in the battle were having a hard time. Now that they could rest, they were happy for them. At least they had a chance to recover their stamina. On the Golden Island, it was extremely dark. Xia Shui leaned against a tree. She was eating a piece of bread in her hand. Although this bread couldn't replenish Xia Shui's elemental energy, it had become a habit. However, it had become a habit. Xia Shui also liked to eat these things. It was a small hobby. Her clothes were also badly damaged. She had never experienced a battle like this. If she could, she would have taken a bath immediately. But she raised her head and looked at the ranking. The second place was only 2 abyssal races away from her. This Wang Jian is really a jerk. As the first seat, Xia Shui naturally wouldn't allow anyone to surpass her. But this guy really hit it too well. Xia Shui had even thought about it. When she returned, she must teach this guy a lesson. Chapter 15-17. Late at night. Although Xia Shui had also relaxed at this moment and was trying her best to recover her energy, there was a strange feeling in her heart. It seemed that this matter would not end so easily. After all, Li Zongjio never played his cards according to common sense. Who could stop him? Therefore, although Xia Shui was in a half-rested state, she did not completely trust Li Zongjio's words. She really relaxed her vigilance and rested. Indeed, in the second half of the night, Li Zongjio actually unsealed the abyss race directly. Then, the abyss race sneaked up on those who were sleeping. There were only 5 of them left. After such a sneak attack, there were only 3 of them left on the entire Golden Island. 2 of them were directly eliminated. What a pitiful bunch. Even when the 2 of them were brought to the main warship, they did not even realize what was going on. How did damn, we were tricked. The 2 of them also wondered if Evil Lord would release the abyss race in the middle of the night to sneak up on them. But on second thought, the evil dominator had always been a man of his word, and always kept his promises. Therefore, they chose to believe in Li Zongjio. Because they had consumed too much energy, they could not keep up with the recovery. Therefore, during the rest process, they fell into a deep sleep. When they opened their eyes again, they were already back on the main warship. Everyone was incomparably surprised. Even those who were eliminated at the beginning were originally asleep. But when they heard the commotion on the deck, they came out to take a look and found out that Li Zongjio had activated the abyss race in advance. Zhang Ying saw everything Li Zongjio did with his own eyes. With such strength, he tricked the disciples of the academy. A teacher like Li Zongjio was really the first. They could not believe that Li Zongjio would do such a thing. Luo Fugue, who was escaping, used the shield in his hand to block the attacks of dozens of abyss race. Sleeping in the middle of the night was simply too thrilling. Not long after he fell asleep, he vaguely heard some movement. Fortunately, he reacted quickly enough. Otherwise, he would have been disqualified from the sneak attack just now. Mother of God, where did this evil lord get his wicked taste from? Strictly speaking, they were all disciples of Li Zongjio Academy. Li Zongjio was their real manor head. There had never been a manor head who had the ability to trick his disciples like this. I must complain to Li Zongjio when I get back. He had to tell the dean. This evil lord was clearly toying with them. As an archer, Wang Jian was quite lucky. He had the habit of setting traps, so when the abyssal tribe got close to him, they immediately triggered the traps. Without saying a word, he immediately woke up and entered battle mode. As expected, Li Zongjio's words could not be trusted. It was another thrilling battle. Let's wait until the sun rises. Li Zongjio thought of another plan. He did not expect that controlling the world's rules would be such a fun thing. He could directly control everything in the palm of his hand. He immediately stretched out his hand. Then he gathered the remaining 3 people together. They could not resist this power. They could only watch as they were sent to an unfamiliar place. Then they finally saw their companions. Golden Island was too big. Additionally, when Li Zongjio released the abyssal race, he made sure to control their positions very well. Therefore, these people didn't have the opportunity to meet each other. But now, he actually took the initiative to gather the 3 of them. Among them, Xia Shui had already killed 731. As expected of the first seat of Sky Sect Academy. This kind of comprehension and innate talent in battle was also displayed incisively and vividly. Under such high pressure, some people could not bear it. But some people could go against the flow and directly adapt to it. They could even break through under this pressure. It could be said that the remaining 3 had such characteristics. Xia Shui, Luo Fugue, and Wang Jian. Why are you guys here? The 3 of them said almost at the same time. But after saying that, their faces suddenly became strange. Because when something unusual happened, it meant that Li Zongjio had a new idea. Could it be? Everyone on the main battleship was also awakened by Li Zongjio. Even Zhou Zheng's heart ached for these children. Such good children, but they were tortured to this state by Li Zongjio. It was simply frightening. Congratulations to the 3 of you for staying until the end. Now, there's a new special segment. Special segment. When they heard Li Zongjio's words, whether it was on the ship or the people on the island, their hearts skipped a beat. It was as if they were lifted by someone. Chu Wen and Ma Luotian, who were eliminated in the sneak attack, looked at each other. What kind of strange move was this? Next, the three of you can work together. I will summon a abyss tide, and each tide will last for 20 minutes. There will be a 10-minute break in between. Whoever survives a round will be rewarded with a grade 6 pill. Li Zongjio's voice sounded like a demon singing beside one's ear. Although he was trying his best not to believe this fellow's words, his body was very honest. He felt as if he had already taken the grade 6 elixir pill into his pocket. Abyss tide? Doesn't that mean something similar to a beast tide? There will be thousands or even more Abyss tribe members rushing over at the same time. I want to quit? Luo Fugue's face hung a trace of a bitter smile. This kind of thing seemed to be a choice for them. Since Li Zongjio had already said those words, how could he let you leave so easily? This won't be a problem, right? The corner of Zhou Zheng's eyes twitched. This Li Zongjio really knew how to play. He came up with all sorts of methods. However, once the beast horde broke out, and there were only 3 people in front of them, they didn't even have any defensive fortifications. Basically, they would be trampled on by anyone. It was quite dangerous. If they didn't control it well, they would lose their lives. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Li Zongjio's face was gentle. Such a fun thing must be popularized. Even Li Zongjio didn't want to destroy this golden island. It was a good opportunity to use the Abyss tribe members on this golden island to train these kids. Otherwise, how could the Tianzong Academy compete with others? It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. These Abyss tribe members would be the whetstones. Hearing Li Zongjio's words, the Tianzong Academy disciples behind him couldn't help but take a step back. This was too scary. How could someone have such a strange idea? Was this something a human would do? How could a normal person do something like this? Chu Wen at least heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she was sent out during the sneak attack. Otherwise, she would have to face the beast tide now. Li Zongjio presented the scene of Golden Island. It was displayed in front of everyone. Although the 3 of them weren't very willing, they were just saying it. At least, they had to withstand the first wave. 6th grade pill. It was only 20 minutes away from them. How could he not seize such an opportunity? They had to hold on even if they died. Hence, under Xia Shui's command, Luo Fugue directly moved several large stones, forming a barrier in front of them. Wang Jian also quickly piled up some traps that had taken shape. Just as they were preparing, suddenly, there was a tremor in front of them. Such a strong tremor also shocked everyone. At this moment, they could see the trees in front of them falling to the sides. Luo Fugue in front. Wang Jian ranged. I'm in charge of killing. The number of kills will be divided equally. Show me your true strength, Xia Shui said in a deep voice. However, when the beast tide appeared in front of them, the 3 of them were still shocked by this terrifying movement. They stood there in a daze for at least 3 seconds. Damn, there are at least 100,000 of them. Chapter 15:18. How could he do this? Wherever his gaze passed, it was filled with the surging black masses of abyssal clan monsters. And the speed of these abyssal monsters was extremely fast. Boom. They wanted to complain about Li Zongjio, but the abyssal monsters in front of them didn't give them any chance. The first wave of attacks had already hit the ground. Wang Jian also used the arrow in his hand to shoot out a ring of fire in front of him. Many of the traps were triggered, tearing the abyssal tribe into pieces. But there were too many of them. At this moment, the stones that were prepared were instantly broken through. Luo Fugue's grip on the shield was also firm. He wouldn't let go even a little bit. If he did, he would be dead for sure. Xia Shui stepped on Luo Fugue's shoulder. Then she released an extremely cold sword chi, killing the abyssal monsters in front of her. But there were too many of them. I can't hold on anymore. Take the pill. Luo Fugue roared. After all, he was the main target of the attack. The attacks of the abyssal tribe seemed to be endless. Luo Fugue couldn't bear it any longer, so he immediately roared. Luo Fugue swallowed the overlord pill that Li Zongjio rewarded him. If he wanted to resist this beast tide, he couldn't do it without taking the pill. It had only been 2 minutes, but it felt like 2 days had passed. It was hard to resist. After taking the Overlord pill, Luo Fugue's aura exploded. Boom! Within a radius of 20 meters, there was a vacuum. The surrounding abyssal monsters were all blown away and shattered. Get down! Luo Fugue smashed the shield in his hand on the ground. Immediately, a crack appeared in front of him. Some of the abyssal monsters fell into the crack. Wang Jian was quick to react. He knocked an arrow on his bow and fired a flaming arrow into the crack. Boom! The raging flames, coupled with some of the explosive power, killed a group of abyssal monsters. Then, Luo Fugue swung his shield in another direction. Another crack appeared on the wall. Xia Shui also quickly released the sword chi in her hand. The sharp and terrifying sword aura froze the abyssal clan in the crack into ice cubes. The sharp aura that followed shattered them all. The effects of the Overlord pill could only last for 3 minutes. 3 minutes later, Luo Fugue originally thought that he would enter this weakened state, but he didn't expect that his state didn't weaken at all, and his body had improved a little. Fuck, this medicinal pill is too awesome. You guys should eat as well. It turned out that the Overlord pill in his hand could not only increase his strength for a short period of time, but it could also allow him to absorb the energy within it. Therefore, after the effects of the pill ended, not only would he not enter a weakened state, his strength would also increase to a certain extent. It was different from the kind of pill that purely increased one's explosive power. As expected of a pill concocted by Evil Lord. Just this alone was enough to shock everyone. They couldn't believe that such a powerful pill existed. Take turns to take it. We have to hold on for 5 minutes with each pill. The effects of the pill could only last for 3 minutes, but the beast tide would last for 20 minutes. Up until now, they had only held on for 5 minutes. If they only relied on this pill, they might only be able to hold on for 1 round at most. Therefore, in the process of taking the pill, they had to try their best to stimulate their potential as much as possible. This time, it was Xia Shui who took the pill. At the same time, Xia Shui also gave Luo Fugue 2 pills. If you can't hold on, we'll all be wiped out. In such a tense moment, Luo Fugue didn't waste any time, nor did he act pretentious. As soon as Xia Shui consumed the elixir, she could feel a powerful energy gathering in her body. Then, Xia Shui dashed out and circled around the area, wiping out all the abyssal tribe members. Under Xia Shui's sword, there were no intact corpses left. They were all basically turned into scrap. Xia Shui couldn't hold on for 5 minutes. She barely managed to hold on for 4 minutes. Then, she couldn't hold on any longer. She immediately retreated. Let me give it a try too. After Wang Jian finished speaking, he took the pill. The pill that Li Zongjio gave them was the Overlord pill. The effect of this pill could save their lives, and it also allowed them to kill more abyssal clan members easily. In 10 minutes, Xia Shui and Luo Fugue directly killed nearly 600 abyssal clan members. This was equivalent to a day's worth of results for each of them. It was simply unimaginable. After taking the pill, Wang Jian entered a state of true harvesting. The bow in his hand could easily kill a column of abyssal clan members with a single arrow. In an instant, the column of abyssal clan members in front of him was pierced through, and after that, a terrifying explosive force was formed. Therefore, these abyssal clan members self-destructed one after another. The people on the main warship watched the cooperation of the 3 people, and their blood boiled. It seemed that they were completely infected by this struggle of power. These people's tenacious fighting spirit was really admirable. Zhang Ying was even more shocked. This was because Li Zongjio only spent a day to cultivate these young people who had not even had much experience in Jianghu into battle-hardened experts. Compared to the beginning, they relied on their own talents. It took more than 10 minutes to fight one abyssal clan member, but now they had found a way to accurately use the sword in their hand to kill the enemy in front of them within 2 moves. Even 2 moves were considered a lot. They were even faster, basically killing 1 or 2 with 1 move. Simple and efficient. This kind of simple and direct attack was not something that could be done directly. It required hundreds of battles and countless repetitions to turn all the moves into this 1 move, and finally merge them into this 1 move. This was the real definition of turning complexity into simplicity. straightforward and direct. It had only been a single night, but these people had already become experienced veterans. Zhang Ying looked at Li Zongjiu's figure. Was this the realm of an expert? It was really incredible. Of course, the premise was that they had a strong enough strength to guarantee it. Otherwise, if ordinary people used this method, it was basically an act of suicide. Chapter 1519. Only a powerhouse of Li Zongjiu's level was in charge. Li Zongjiu also gave these people dawn. Moreover, these dawn were absolutely good dawn. Although Li Zongjiu only gave them 5th grade dawn, but it was a 5th grade dawn refined by an alchemist of this level. It was enough to easily beat the 6th grade pill refined by an ordinary 6th grade alchemist. Otherwise, this 11th grade pill would not be so easy to refine. This was the gap between the realms. One had to admit that some people were so powerful. Zhou Zheng was also dumbfounded by the sight. He was not stupid. Li Zongjiu had been pressuring them all the way here, but he also left them a way out. As long as they were decisive enough, smart enough, and have enough willpower, they could continue. But as for how far they could go, that would depend on their own willpower. Li Zongjiu was actually training them. Otherwise, if the top abyssal clan was released, they could easily get rid of them. Therefore, Li Zongjiu's seemingly bad taste was actually real control. Only when one had complete control over the entire situation could one play freely here. Otherwise, the situation would have been even worse. These people in front of them were the abyssal clan who killed without batting an eye. In their eyes, humans were just delicious food and nourishment. They would not have the slightest mercy. If they did not control it well, they would be dead. It was because of this powerful strength that Li Zongjiu was able to grasp the details so well. The first 15 minutes were still manageable. Until the last 5 minutes. The 3 of them had to take pills at the same time to be able to withstand it. Boom! After a bloody battle, a small piece of the shield in Luo Fugue's hand had been cut off. Under such a terrifying attack just now, it was very good that Luo Fugue's shield could withstand until now. As for King Arrow, he only had 3 arrows with special abilities left. After all, the basic attacks were all arrows condensed from one's own dark force. However, if it was a physical arrow, its power would be enormous and it would have such unexpected effects. Now, only 3 were left. Even Xia Shui's sword was damaged. There were several nicks on the blade. But in comparison, their physical strength and willpower were almost exhausted. It was precisely at such a time that it would be a very difficult test for a warrior. Moreover, they all knew that they couldn't hold on for much longer in the second round. Rather than wasting pills, he might as well give up now. A normal person would definitely think the same. Even the people on the main battleship were thinking that they should just give up. Even if they continued to fight, it would only be a waste of energy. However, Xia Shui and the others were still checking their weapons and equipment, ready to fight at any time. Use fire. Xia Shui and the other 2 had no intention of leaving at all. They were just thinking about how to deal with the next beast tide. As a powerhouse, he would never back down. Therefore, he had to make ample preparations for his own strength. In the face of any difficulties, he could not back down. If there is no path of retreat behind you, then you must persevere. Under Xia Shui's command, the corpses of the Abyssal clan were piled up together and set ablaze. The Abyss race was most afraid of fire. As long as a path was created to kill the Abyss race in front of them, it would be considered a success. But compared to the beast tide just now, such a flame was indeed a little too small. It was estimated that each of the Abyss race would be able to extinguish the flame with a single breath. But now, there was no other way. If you want to back out of this round, I can keep the rewards of the first round and compensate you with the pills you have consumed. But if you want to continue, then follow the normal procedure. I just want to see how you look when you give up. Li Zongjiu's voice was heard on the Golden Island again. For Xia Shui and the others, this kind of temptation was definitely a fatal attraction. Even Luo Fugue wanted to raise his hand and say that he gave up. At the very least, he would be able to take back the pills that he had consumed. However, he quickly dispelled the idea. After all, the 3 of them had experienced Li Zongjiu's strength in less than 2 days. Who would dare to take up Li Zongjio's challenge? Who knew if something worse would happen later? It would be too late for regrets. So, they had to follow the original plan. We choose to continue, Xia Shui said to the empty space. She did not know if Li Zongjio could hear her. In fact, Xia Shui and the others did not know that their current situation was being displayed in front of the others. But the number of kills could still be seen clearly. In the short 20 minutes just now, the total number of Abyssal Clan members killed by the three of them had reached 3,000. Of course, it was an accumulation. Some of them were only injured and did not really die. In fact, towards the end, they were already resisting the attacks. They thought that Li Zongjio would do something strange. But Li Zongjio suddenly stretched out his hand and waved. Immediately, 3 rays of light fell from the sky. With a boom, they landed in front of the 3 of them. Boom! It was a huge green shield that landed in front of Luo Fuguei. This is, looking at the patterns engraved on the green shield. There was also a heavy and steady feeling that was released from it. What a powerful shield! When Luo Fuguei stretched out his hand to grab the shield, he immediately knew what was in his hand at this moment. Black Tortoise Shield. Xia Shui also got a sword. The power of this sword was above the power of her original sword. Water Frost Sword. Xia Shui was also shocked. In front of Wang Jian, it was an orange-yellow treasure bow. This is Fierce Sun Bow. Just from the aura that erupted from these 3 weapons, they could already tell that they were all divine weapons. This is too extravagant. Those are divine weapons. Everyone was shocked. Li Zongjio waved his hand and directly rewarded them with 3 divine weapons. Don't be too happy. But, are divine weapons rare? Li Zongjio could not help but frown. He said it so casually. His attitude made people want to go up and punch him. Chapter 1520. Indeed. In Li Zongjio's eyes, divine tools and the like were completely worthless. Li Zongjio had obtained these things from the sacred martial realm. As for where he had obtained them, he had long forgotten about them. They had suddenly appeared in his storage ring. Since that was the case, he might as well take them out and let these people have a good time. At this moment, the 3 people who had unintentionally obtained these divine weapons on Golden Mountain could not react in time. Even within the 3 great empires, it was impossible for them to take out the divine weapon as they pleased. Taking out 3 divine weapons at once, it was as if they were free gifts. There were actually so many benefits after becoming strong. The people on the ship felt their blood boiling. That was because these were divine weapons. After obtaining a divine weapon, one's combat power would instantly increase by more than 10 times. The feeling of having one's strength suddenly increased was something that everyone would like very much. Some of them had even been dreaming of the arrival of this day. In fact, you don't even need to cultivate to have such powerful strength. Who wouldn't want to experience it? Originally, if they had worked harder and been more careful, they would have had a chance to obtain a divine weapon. Who knew that they would be rewarded with a divine weapon at the last moment? If they had known, they would not have come down even if they were to die on Golden Island. At the very least, they would have wanted to see what the divine weapon looked like. None of them had actually seen it before. Now, they could only envy Xia Shui and the others. The 3 people who had obtained the divine weapon's help were obviously in top condition at this moment. Li Zongjio looked at the time and saw that it was almost time. With a snap of his fingers, the entire Golden Island began to tremble. Even the seawater around the Golden Island began to form huge waves one after another. They were constantly slapping out and attacking along with the huge waves. The people on the warship also looked over. They were even more nervous than the people on Golden Island. Xia Shui and the others also knew that Li Zongjio could give them divine weapons, which would bring them even more pressure. It was impossible for him to let them have an easy time. In the hands of Li Zongjio, they would not be able to gain any advantage. Boom! Immediately, a look of horror appeared in Xia Shui's eyes. That is, in their line of sight, a group of extremely powerful Abyssal Race members charged out. These Abyssal Race members opened their arms, and there was a transparent object connected to their bodies. He leaped from the top of the mountain and glided down. When he spread his wings, it looked like a pair of wings. Boo! Fight! Xia Shui shouted. Luo Fugue raised his shield. Buzz! A powerful energy shield instantly appeared in front of them, protecting the three of them. At the same time, Wang Jian shot dozens of arrows into the sky. Boom! The arrow that was shot out also carried a trace of destructive power. A blazing aura erupted from the ardent sun bow. The terrifying power of the ardent sun bow also came from it. But just this move also exhausted half of Wang Jian's essence energy. Although divine artifacts were powerful, they could not withstand more than 2 moves. It was the same for Luo Fugue. The defensive barrier that erupted from the black tortoise shield in his hand was almost unbreakable. The opponent had no chance to break through. But Luo Fugue could not maintain it for too long. Just now, the abyssal race members that were equivalent to primitive emperors in the sky were all shot to death. 1 arrow was enough to kill them. In just 30 seconds. At this moment, around the black tortoise shield, there were already tens of thousands of abyssal race members surrounding it. It was so overwhelming that they could not even see the situation outside. They could only see the figures of the abyssal race members in front of them. Boom! Luo Fugue's essence energy was exhausted. Immediately, the light of the black tortoise shield disappeared. Finally, the abyssal race members directly fell down. However, Xia Shui had already prepared this last big move. Boom! 1,000 miles ice seal. In just a blink of an eye. Wherever the sword aura reached, everything was directly turned into ice. It was covered by this powerful ice and snow power. Boom! But it did not have any effect. Although the abyssal race members in this circle were all frozen. But the abyssal race members behind also took the place of the fallen and broke the ice sculptures. At the same time, they directly charged towards the 3 of them. Even if they obtained a divine artifact, it could not change anything. After all, the attack this time was too powerful. Xia Shui's sword strike had already consumed all of her origin energy. Although the divine artifact was powerful, the amount consumed was too terrifying. It was completely unbelievable. At the same time, the 3 of them saw darkness in front of them. It seemed that someone was forcefully grabbing their shoulders. After walking in the darkness for a while, they finally put them down. Bang! The 3 of them landed on the ground. But they also held the weapons in their hands tightly. They did not wake up. Let's go back first. Li Zongjio said. On the warship, Xia Shui and the other 2 were just lying in the open. Because the consumption of this battle was too great. Therefore, they didn't have any strength left. Although they wanted to continue, they had already struggled to their limits. Under normal circumstances, if there was such a serious overdraft, it would be very dangerous for the cultivator. But fortunately, they met Li Zongjio, the overlord pill that they had taken before. Just at this time, the remaining effect of the pill was released. All of it was replenished in their bodies, allowing them to obtain better absorption. With such conditions, when he recovered, he would definitely be full of vigor and vitality. Moreover, he would also have a greater breakthrough. There was no doubt about this. See, this is what it means to try your best. Li Zongjio looked at the remaining students. Now, there were only 28 of them left. 2 of them, Li Zongjio saw that they did not look like good people, so he directly let them die in the hands of the abyssal race. Just as well, he used their corpses to tell these people in front of him. He was not joking. It could really kill people. Now, this group of people also lowered their heads in shame. It had to be said. The 3 of them did have outstanding willpower. If it were them, they would have been defeated long ago, or even given up. At least they still had a lot of energy left. But these people lying on the deck in front of them were the ones who really gave it their all. They did not have any energy left. It was admirable. Sometimes, in a group of geniuses, one only needed to nurture 2 leaders. In other words, they could directly set an example for the rest of them to pull themselves together. In fact, if this example was outstanding, some of the people behind would also think that they had incredible strength and achieve even greater things. When Zhou Jing, Zhang Ying, and the others saw Li Zongjio standing with his hands behind his back, they were simply stunned. Unfathomable. This was the true definition of unfathomable. Chapter 1521. The main battleship sailed back again. After a day and night of battle, this group of students needed to recuperate. At the same time, such a high-intensity battle had benefited them greatly. After that, they would have a good understanding of their own battles. They would definitely have a better breakthrough in the future. Li Zongjio temporarily stayed in Binhai City. He could use this opportunity to nurture and educate the disciples of the Tianzong Academy. Zhang Hengliang was naturally happy that Li Zongjio was staying here. This way, the safety of Binhai City would be greatly guaranteed. At the same time, he would have the opportunity to communicate more with people like Li Zongjio. It just so happened that his daughter was already at the age to get married. However, this darn girl only knew how to stay at sea and hang out with the army every day. This gave Zhang Hengliang a headache. When Zhang Hengliang called Zhang Ying to the study, he told her clearly to interact more with Li Zongjio. Lass, this is such a good opportunity. If you can become Imperial Tutor's pillow, our Zhang family will be able to prosper. Besides, is there a better man in this world than Imperial Tutor? Zhang Hengliang also had a look of disappointment on his face. Zhang Ying rolled her eyes helplessly. Only her biological father could think of this. Father, he's Imperial Tutor. Such a young state preceptor would definitely be eye-catching no matter where he went. There were countless nobles who wanted to give their daughters to Li Zongjio. If they could get such a relative, it would be a blessing of 3 lifetimes. How many women in this world didn't want to marry Li Zongjio? What's wrong? Our Zhang family is the governor of the Binhai Navy. You are the governor's daughter. Aren't you worthy? You have to know that our identities aren't bad either. Zhang Hengliang said proudly. Pride was written all over his face. However, if one were to compare his status with Li Zongjio, according to common sense, he was barely qualified. However, Zhang Ying had seen Li Zongjio's methods. He knew Li Zongjio's strength. Their realms were also unbelievably strong. Zhang Ying reckoned that even Li Zongjio did not care about the Imperial Tutor's position. It was the Xingyan dynasty that was basking in Li Zongjio's glory. Father, don't let your imagination run wild here. Imperial Tutor's realm is different from ours. Zhang Ying said. As a young girl, when she saw a powerful and charming man like Li Zongjio, she couldn't help but be attracted to him. However, after witnessing Li Zongjio's true methods, Zhang Ying knew that it wasn't an exaggeration to call him a god. Therefore, on this level, there was a huge gap. Zhang Ying knew that he couldn't be delusional. The gap was indeed too big. In the following period of time, Li Zongjio refined all the elixirs for the students. Although Li Zongjio had a lot of elixirs on him, if he could give the students elixirs that corresponded to their attributes, it would be better if he could give them elixirs that corresponded to their attributes. After consuming them, the effects would be better. It took him 2 days to refine the elixirs. After all, there were many types of elixirs. In addition, the preparation of the herbs naturally required time. In the following half a month's time, among this batch of students, even the weakest one had broken through to the peak of the origin ancestor realm. In just half a month, they had broken through several realms consecutively. It was simply shocking. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Zhou Zheng had a dumbfounded look on his face. There were many students in this batch who had been trained by him. However, he hadn't expected that Li Zongjio would make such a huge breakthrough so quickly. It was the same batch of students, but different mentors had different effects. Sometimes, talent was important. However, most of the time, one's talent wasn't at its peak. If one was able to fully utilize what little talent one had, it would create a very shocking effect. Therefore, when one wasn't as good as others, one shouldn't blame one's talent. It was because one wasn't hardworking enough that such a situation would occur. The most outstanding ones were Xia Shui and the other 2. It was also in this trial that he had forced out all his potential. Just this ferocious energy alone was enough to make people unable to believe it. Often, the more talented a person was, the more hardworking he or she would be. The cultivation of the 3 of them had also broken through to the origin monarch realm. Furthermore, Xia Shui's own cultivation had also broken through to the 5th grade origin monarch realm. When Xia Shui woke up, she couldn't believe her eyes. She had broken through after sleeping for a while. Furthermore, it was such a huge breakthrough. She thought that she was still in a dream. Luo Fugue and Wang Jian had also broken through to the third-grade origin monarch realm. Fortunately, Xia Shui was slightly ahead of the two of them. Even the people of the Imperial Martial Pavilion had to give way when they saw this. However, Li Zongjio had also sent a letter back while he was in Binhai City. He had asked the people of the White Deer Mansion to investigate the people in the Azure Ocean Academy. This was because there were people from the Devouring Yuan clan hidden in the Azure Ocean Academy. These people had to be dealt with. Otherwise, Li Zongjio wouldn't be able to sleep. He wouldn't be able to sleep comfortably either. When he was free, Li Zongjio continued to attempt the trial in the Evil Dragon Eye. Thinking about how Li Zongjio had been repeatedly thwarted by the Evil Dragon's Eye, he naturally couldn't let these students have a good time. Very quickly, after these people broke through, Li Zongjio continued to assign tasks to them. This time, Li Zongjio didn't accompany these people to the Golden Island. Li Zongjio's request was still the same. He wanted them to harvest the heads of the abyssal race on the Golden Island. However, the only difference was that they couldn't take a boat. They could only swim across the river like this. It didn't matter if they flew or floated on the water. They didn't have the chance to take a boat. They had to rely on their own strength to cross over 1,000 miles of sea and reach the Golden Island. During this time, Li Zongjio also found out that there was a mineral vein hidden on the Golden Island. This mineral vein was the favorite of the abyssal race. If they devoured it, they would evolve. They would become the king of the abyssal race. They were called the Abyssal Kings. Now, an abyssal king had been born. However, this abyssal king was being held back by Longji. Li Zongjio wasn't worried. A little chaos and crisis on the continent was the real long-term solution. If they were too free and didn't have to worry about food and clothing, it would be easy for internal strife to occur. Even these people themselves would become more numb. They would just wait for a tall person to appear and block the things that fell from the sky. They had to cultivate their own battle awareness. Today, a group of students landed on the Golden Island. However, Li Zongjio, who was in the middle of cultivation, suddenly opened his eyes. This was because there was an unusual movement on Golden Island. Chapter 1522. When Li Zongjio noticed the changes on Golden Island, there were already a few students on the island. After all, Golden Island was mostly under Li Zongjio's control. It was impossible for the abyssal race to break free from Golden Island. However, there were a few exceptions. At the very beginning, there was an abyssal race hiding in the depths of an ore vein on Golden Island. Relying on multiple barriers, they managed to avoid Li Zongjio's mental power detection. Now that the time was right, the abyssal race began to devour the core energy on Golden Island, which was the core of the ore vein. Now, this king of the abyss had also completed its evolution. Li Zongjio didn't look for the abyssal king carefully. Therefore, the abyssal king that was comparable to the peak of the absolute saint realm was born on Golden Island. Chu Wen and the others also formed a small team. They wanted to farm here and gain some combat experience. Moreover, the statistics of the abyssal race killed were still in effect. Therefore, they wanted to continue killing the abyssal race and go to Li Zongjio to exchange for pills. Suddenly, there was a huge commotion on Golden Island. Is Lord Evil Dominator playing some new tricks again? Could it be that we've been chosen and are going to be rewarded? After seeing Xia Shui and the others obtain so many rewards, the people who were previously scared to death were even looking forward to the next test. Since Li Zongjio had directly chosen them, then no matter how difficult it was, they had to persevere until the end. In this way, they would be able to obtain more rewards. In this way, they would have a stronger guarantee to increase their strength. Other people would cultivate bitterly for 8 to 10 years, but Yi Shiwen only needed a month. How infuriating! Something's wrong. Evil Lord is in seclusion. Chu Wen frowned. Indeed, something was wrong. If Evil Lord wanted to say something, he would have told them in advance. Although Golden Island was under the complete control of the Evil Dominator, it was inevitable that there would be some situations where he missed out on the island. What he had accumulated over the past few days allowed him to have a very accurate sense of the crisis that was about to befall him. Immediately, Chu Wen hurriedly gathered everyone. Boom! Soon, the seal on the Golden Island was broken by a powerful force. Following that, countless powerful Abyssal Tribe members also erupted in cheers. In the past few days, these powerful Abyssal race were completely sealed in place by a mysterious existence. The mysterious existence didn't even kill them, instead, it kept teasing them. This was a great humiliation to the Abyssal Tribe powerhouses. The low-level Abyssal race members might only be good at attacking and attacking endlessly. However, the high-level Abyssal race members basically had intelligence of their own. They even had emotions. It was just that humans couldn't understand these emotions. However, the Abyssal race members communicated with each other in this way. Finally, the Abyssal race members were angry. They were finally free. Now that they were led by the Abyss King, they would definitely be able to wipe out these humans and return all the humiliation that the humans had inflicted on them. A large number of Abyssal race members spread out from the mine. Retreat. Release the signal. Chu Wen immediately realized that this wasn't a test assigned by Li Zongjio. It was obvious that Li Zongjio's seal had disappeared. She didn't expect that Evil Lord would make a mistake. However, if he did, the problem would be very serious. Now, the latter had made a mistake. Where would we get the signal flare? Even if we did, we wouldn't be able to see it. The students below also started to panic. Don't panic, Chu Wen said. At the same time, she led everyone to a favorable place to set up a defense line. This place was also very close to the sea. However, they couldn't go into the sea. Otherwise, the Abyssal race's strength would increase greatly. It was very difficult to defeat them in the water. These days, there were many Abyssal race members in the water. Although there were few of them, they had already eaten up the surrounding sea. Moreover, these Abyssal race members often sneak attacked Binhai City. Obviously, they didn't have any intelligence. In front of such a powerful navy, these Abyssal race members were basically no different from courting death. Oh my god, that's the real deal. Chu Wen and the others gathered together and looked at the Golden Island in front of them. It had completely awakened and become a real Abyssal Island. Boom. It was overwhelming, and the mountains and rivers shook. These Abyssal race members were all above the primitive Emperor realm. There were even hundreds of Supremes among them. Even a breath from the other party was enough to extinguish them. Now that they were facing a true death situation, they couldn't resist at all. They could only fight to the death. However, just as Chu Wen and the others were about to fight to the death, an extremely terrifying force suddenly appeared in front of them. Boom! What followed was an invisible, transparent wall. The moment this transparent wall appeared, the Abyssal race members that swooped down were all shattered after getting close. It was as if their bodies had turned into glass and ceramics and were directly smashed by someone. It was so simple and direct. One after another. Group after group. It didn't even matter if they were strong or weak. It didn't matter how strong or weak you were. All of them ended up in an orderly manner. They were easily crushed and turned into countless pieces. Whoosh. Outside the transparent barrier, these Abyssal race members were constantly losing their lives. As for the ground where Chu Wen and the others were standing, not even a single blade of grass shook. Seeing such a shocking scene, Chu Wen and the others immediately realized that this must be Li Zongjio's move. Evil Lord Senior had made a move. You guys are really unlucky. Li Zongjio stood with his hands behind his back and appeared behind Chu Wen and the others. Immediately, Chu Wen also turned her head around. When she saw Li Zongjio in front of her, she was incomparably pleasantly surprised. However, when she heard Li Zongjio's words, her expression changed one by one. She even directly rolled her eyes at Li Zongjio. Isn't this all your fault? How can you blame us for not being lucky enough? Isn't this all because you didn't control these Abyssal race members well? No need to thank me. After Li Zongjio finished speaking, he waved his hand. Immediately, this transparent energy barrier moved in the direction of these Abyssal race members. The process of moving was like a cutting machine of the abyssal race. All the abyssal race members were turned into pieces after touching this transparent barrier. Not a single one was left alive. It was completely cleaned up. After Li Zongjio cleaned up the entire Golden Island. From the bottom of the Golden Island, a powerful wave of energy came. The main character is here. How dare you embarrass me? Let me see what you've got. Li Zongjio sneered. Chapter 1523. It was the Abyss King. He had finally evolved into the Abyss King, and just as he was about to lead the Abyss clan to a new height, he encountered Li Zongjio. Just a move. That was to kill all the Abyssal tribe members on Golden Island. When the Abyss King saw this, he was so angry that he almost died on the spot. Therefore the Abyss King burst out. The entire Golden Island seemed to be under his control. A terrifying power burst out from the Abyss King's body. The Abyss King looked like a giant octopus, but it was obviously not an octopus, but a 100-tentacled fish. When the Abyss King's claws occupied the Golden Mountain, the energy of the mineral veins under the Golden Mountain was being absorbed by the Abyss King. Boom! One of the Abyss King's claws grabbed a mountain and threw it at Li Zongjio and the others. It was as if the mountain, which was nearly 100 meters tall, was just a pebble in the Abyss King's hand. It was as easy as pie. Go! Li Zongjio pushed with his finger. The unparalleled sword appeared and slashed the mountain into pieces. Instantly, the sky was filled with shattered stones. Li Zongjio raised one hand, and the shattered stones were cut into cones by an invisible force. They were like stone nails. With a wave of his hand, the stone cones flew toward the Abyss King. Swoosh, swoosh. The stone cones directly shattered one of the Abyss King's tentacles. There were no other Abyss clan members on the Golden Island. Li Zongjio leaped and took the initiative to attack the Abyss King. Chu Wen and the others widened their eyes as they watched the battle. It could be said to be an unparalleled battle. It was not always possible to see Li Zongjio in action. Even the Abyss King who appeared now was almost as strong as Li Zongjio. My God, I guess other than Evil Lord, no one in the world can take this thing. A disciple beside Chu Wen said. They didn't know how strong Li Zongjio was, but the King of the Abyss in front of them was able to tear down a peak of the Golden Mountain. Such power was already comparable to that of a god or demon. Who could stop him? Li Zongjio held the unparalleled sword in his hand. Flaming sword chi followed the long sword and swept forward. It was enough to form an area of 300 meters. At the same time, heat waves surged. The sword chi seemed slow, but it was unavoidable. The King of the Abyss was also using the power of the Abyss to defend himself. Most of his body was submerged in the seawater, and as he shook, the seawater turned into a long dragon that blasted towards Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio swung his palm backward. The domineering palm force seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth apart as it sent tens of millions of tons of seawater flying. At the same time, almost every drop of the shattered seawater turned into a water needle. Suddenly, more than tens of millions of water needles were thrown towards the King of the Abyss in front of him. The King of the Abyss also waved his tentacles to defend himself. However, they were easily pierced through by the water needles that were flying over. Chu Wen and the others were looking at Li Zongjio's exquisite control. Clearly, his control over his own yuan power had already reached the level of the fine hair level. The ultimate level of detail. When will I be able to have such control? Chu Wen was also amazed in her heart. Li Zongjio's usage of yuan power had allowed them to see the ingenuity of using yuan power. It was much more effective than using all of his yuan power to blast it out. Even yuan power could be controlled to such an extent. How many people in the world could do it? Li Zongjio felt that what he had shown was almost enough. It was time to kill the King of the Abyss. Previously, Li Zongjio was deliberately showing off his skills to let these naive young people know that cultivation was endless. They had to constantly seek the limit, break through, and seek the limit again. The King of the Abyss was the King of the Abyss clan. To be able to evolve to such a level, it was not easy to kill him. Immediately, the latter grabbed the entire Golden Island and lifted it up. His body fell into the sea, but the Golden Island was like a hammer, smashing towards Li Zongjio. The King of the Abyss wrapped around the Golden Island. The King of the Abyss kept the Golden Island in a complete state, and it would not be easily destroyed. Li Zongjio waved his hand and threw Chu Wen and the others into the sea dozens of miles away. Lord Evil Lord won't be smashed to death, right? When Chu Wen and the others saw Li Zongjio, it was too late to dodge. After all, the entire Golden Island was covered by the King of the Abyss. If Li Zongjio did not act quickly and sent them out in advance, they would have been smashed to pieces by the King of the Abyss. Boom! The entire Golden Island exploded in an instant. A 100-meter-high wave was set off on the sea surface. It even threw Chu Wen and the others into the sky. However, in the midst of the King of the Abyss, a figure filled with flames emerged. The latter was still in a punching position. Suddenly, Li Zongjio turned his head and looked at Chu Wen and the others. His figure flashed. He appeared next to Chu Wen and the others. He caught a few tentacles that reached out from the sea and burned them to ashes. However, at this moment, the King of the Abyss, who should have been killed by Li Zongjio, quickly escaped. In the sea, the King of the Abyss's speed was really fast. Are you all okay? Li Zongjio glanced at them. It's all because you guys are useless. You don't even have the ability to protect yourselves. Look, the King of the Abyss escaped. Chu Wen and the others opened their eyes wide. My brother, even if you want to find an excuse, you're too casual. You're the one who asked us to stay on the island to watch your performance. You're the one who wanted to show off your skills. Now that he ran away, you're blaming us. However, Chu Wen and the others adjusted their mentality. After all, you're the one who has the final say. Anyway, no one here can beat you, so you can say whatever you want. Who asked you to be so strong? You guys swim back by yourselves? I'll go after that guy. Don't let him escape. Li Zongjio said and threw them into the sea again. They fell into the water with a few splashes. Then, Li Zongjio's figure instantly disappeared. Boom! Looking at Li Zongjio's figure disappearing, Chu Wen and the others clearly felt that Li Zongjio was bullying them. He was an expert who stood at the peak of the continent, but he still played such a trick. Too cruel. Chapter 1524. The King of the Abyss dived into the deep sea and disappeared. Even Li Zongjio couldn't find him. However, the King of the Abyss was too arrogant. Li Zongjio couldn't let him escape. Even if he hid in the depths of the sea, in the endless sea domain. Li Zongjio also wanted to find this guy. With a splash, Li Zongjio's figure submerged into the seawater. He moved at high speed in the deep sea. Boom! The seawater couldn't slow down Li Zongjio's speed. The King of the Abyss was faster than Li Zongjio in the water. However, Li Zongjio had already left a mark on the King of the Abyss. At the same time, Li Zongjio realized that the King of the Abyss seemed to be luring him over. You want to play with me? You want to play with me? Li Zongjio smiled disdainfully. Li Zongjio had never been afraid of anything. Why would he care about the King of the Abyss? Li Zongjio was now hundreds of thousands of miles away from the continent. The endless sea domain was really endless. It was even bigger than the Holy Martial Continent and the Holy Martial Realm combined. Suddenly, a pitch-black sea appeared in front of him. The Black Sea Domain. In history, most of the records about the endless ocean were about the Black Sea. In the Black Sea Domain, there was nothing but the aura of death. Moreover, it was easy to get lost here. If you lost your will to fight, you would die here. It wasn't an exaggeration at all. After all, the aura of death in the Black Sea Domain was enough to kill a supreme being if he breathed it in for 3 minutes. Then, his body would become the nourishment of the Black Sea Domain. There was nothing in the Black Sea Domain. It was called nothingness. At least in the Holy Martial Continent, no one had found out what was special about it. The only special thing was that it was easy to die here. If you were careless, you would be devoured by the Black Sea Domain. Not even your body could be found. This place is not bad. When Li Zongjio rushed into the Black Sea area, he was shocked. Immediately, he felt the terrifying power that existed in the Black Sea region. It had a very strong destructive power. Even with the strength of Li Zongjio's body, If he continued to stay here, it would take less than a month for him to melt and become a part of the Black Sea. Boom! Just as Li Zongjio was feeling the power of the Black Sea region, suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him. Boom! The Abyss King. However, Li Zongjio took a closer look and found that it wasn't the King of the Abyss that he had been chasing. Obviously, the Abyssal tribe was quite good at seizing opportunities. Unknowingly, they had already cultivated such a powerful Abyssal King. They even knew how to hide. He jumped out at this time to kill Li Zongjio. One rose to the surface. Then the second one and the third one. The fourth one. The fourth one was the King of the Abyss that Li Zongjio had been chasing. The latter had summoned a total of 3 Kings of the Abyss. Including himself, there were a total of 4 Kings of the Abyss. At the same time, they besieged Li Zongjio. If you want to besiege me, I'm afraid that just the 4 of you are not enough. Li Zongjio shook his head in disdain. And the 4 Kings of the Abyss started to attack. An extremely strong wave was set off on the spot. Immediately, 4 water tornadoes were formed around Li Zongjio, and they rolled toward him. The deadly waterspouts formed by the Dark Sea. It was believed that anyone who was swept by this kind of seawater would be directly swallowed up. Black Dragon Hammer. Li Zongjio directly summoned the Black Dragon Hammer in his hand and then fiercely swung it at the Kings of the Abyss. Boom! The 4 huge waterspouts were suddenly shattered. Whoosh! Li Zongjio rushed towards one of the Kings of the Abyss, and the latter's thousands of tentacles were also flying in the air. At this moment, Li Zongjio seemed to be deep in the trial of the evil Dragon Eye. But the King of the Abyss was too slow. It was far slower than the speed of the Hydra in the trial world of the evil Dragon Eye. Although the Hydra only had 9 heads, its intertwining speed was tens of thousands of times faster than these Kings of the Abyss. So Li Zongjio easily dodged the attack of the King of the Abyss. At the same time, the unparalleled sword also rotated around his body, finding the weak point of the opponent's defense, and easily cut it into pieces. Bang, bang, bang. With Li Zongjio's full power, Li Zongjio also easily cut the tentacles of the King of the Abyss in front of him into pieces, and all of them fell directly to the ground. The King of the Abyss also roared in pain. Everyone, no matter what race, knows pain. It's just that some of them are relatively weak, but it's not that they are completely different, it's just that the degree of pain is not enough. Now, Li Zongjio cut it into this state. The King of the Abyss in front of him could only scream in pain. Raising the hammer in his hands, he suddenly smashed the head of the King of the Abyss. Suddenly, the terrifying power directly exploded the body of the King of the Abyss. Flesh and blood splattered all over the sky. The other Kings of the Abyss saw the end of this one, and they were obviously stunned for a moment. But the King of the Abyss reacted quickly. He directly launched a powerful devouring power, absorbing the broken body of the King of the Abyss, and integrated the latter's power into his body. And this was the one Li Zongjio was chasing. It seems that this King of the Abyss of the Golden Island was smarter than the others. Otherwise, it wouldn't have done such a thing. The remaining 2 unfamiliar Kings of the Abyss also became irritable at this moment. But Li Zongjio also realized that. It turned out that the Abyss clan had no fighting power other than their strong digestive ability. To Li Zongjio, these Abyss clan members were no threat at all. Or, these guys weren't strong enough. No matter what abilities they had, Li Zongjio would take them all down. The other 2 Kings of the Abyss were also killed by Li Zongjio. He also wanted to see what other tricks this King of the Abyss of the Golden Island had. The latter didn't really do anything. He just ate the bodies of the Kings of the Abyss, assimilating them into his own power. Finally, he stared at Li Zongjio in front of him. Suddenly, a black light appeared. It suddenly erupted from the Black Sea region. It was a black light. Although it was black, Li Zongjio could clearly feel the energy within. It wasn't that simple. Immediately, this energy fell on the body of the King of the Abyss of the Golden Island. Then, the huge body of the King of the Abyss. It began to condense. Its body was close to 10,000 feet. At this moment, it was shrinking rapidly. In the end, the King of the Abyss kept absorbing the power of the Black Sea, condensing it into his body. It formed an extremely terrifying aura. A pair of hands broke out of the body of the King of the Abyss. A slender man appeared in front of Li Zongjio. The power of the Black Sea was condensing into the man's body. Originally, this man only had his hands and head. Later, with the power of the Black Sea, he gradually formed the shape of a normal man. His entire body was black. I have to thank you for my breakthrough. Chapter 1525. In front of Li Zongjio. In fact, Li Zongjio had even given the latter enough time to let his body transform properly. He had not interrupted his breakthrough. So, what the hell are you? Li Zongjio couldn't help but ask. Could these Abyssal Clan people transform into humans? But judging from the latter's inexperienced look, he shouldn't be able to transform into humans often. Finally, this person, whose body was as black as charcoal, appeared in front of Li Zongjio with a perfect human face. It was truly a magnificent and incomparably exquisite sight. He looked as if he was made of gems and was extremely dazzling. "I am the Emperor of the Abyss," said the latter. His arrogant aura also soared into the sky. Those who didn't know would probably be shocked by the latter. Just by listening to it, one could tell that he was very powerful. "Okay, are you done with your transformation?" said Li Zongjio. Just now, he killed the other 3 Abyssal Kings in a flash. This was not difficult for Li Zongjio. He was so powerful in the first place. Now, the being in front of him who made a temporary breakthrough and claimed to be the Emperor of the Abyss surprised Li Zongjio. After all, this was indeed a little shameless. The main thing was that Li Zongjio didn't know the situation of the Abyssal Clan, so he would listen to what he said. "In the darkness, listen to my call." The Emperor of the Abyss was not in a hurry. Instead, he directly waved in the direction of the Black Sea. Could it be that the Emperor of the Abyss's power was actually related to the Black Sea? Li Zongjio turned his head and looked over. It seemed that there was a force rushing over from a very distant place. Boom! Immediately he saw a pitch-black sword. It streaked across the sky above the Black Sea. It was as if the Black Sea had been split into 2 halves. This dark sword flew directly and fell into the hands of the Emperor of the Abyss. Damn, is it true? Li Zongjio couldn't help but say. Wasn't it a little too careless for a sword to fly over with just a wave of his hand? The main thing was that this move was useless. It seemed that the other party was ready, so Li Zongjio did not hesitate and directly waved the black dragon hammer in his hand. An extremely powerful force burst out from the black dragon hammer. Suddenly, it blasted forward. The black dragon hammer instantly erupted with a power that could destroy the heavens and earth. As for the Emperor of the Abyss, he resisted with the sword of darkness in his hand. Boom! The moment the sword and hammer collided, a huge wave spread out in all directions. As the huge wave continued to spread into the distance, Lin Fan's eyes lit up. The auras of the 2 clashing also spread out. It was just their first clash, yet they were able to reach a level where they were evenly matched. Wow, you've improved. Li Zongjio was also surprised. He did not expect the latter to make such a big breakthrough. It was indeed incredible. It seemed that after eating a few of his kind, there was indeed some effect. Otherwise, he would not dare to be so arrogant in front of Li Zongjio. That's all there is to your strength. The Emperor of the Abyss on the opposite side actually started to taunt. Then, the Emperor of the Abyss also launched an attack on Li Zongjio. Boom! As the Emperor of the Abyss moved, a huge wave immediately appeared on the Black Sea. Then, the huge wave fell toward Li Zongjio. The power of the Black Sea was filled with endless dark energy, which was enough to corrode and devour the origin energy of ordinary cultivators. In the blink of an eye, Li Zongjio was covered. Li Zongjio was surrounded. Boom! Li Zongjio rushed out of the huge wave. The unparalleled sword moved. Suddenly, the flame energy lingered. In an instant, the surrounding Black Sea water was burned clean. Hunyuan Bell! Li Zongjio threw out the Hunyuan Bell with one hand. Immediately, the chaotic energy wrapped around the Hunyuan Bell and blasted forward. The Emperor of the Abyss pointed his sword, but he underestimated the power of the Hunyuan Bell. He was directly sent flying, and the dark sword in his hand was also taken away by Li Zongjio's Hunyuan bell. The Emperor of the Abyss seemed to have realized that something was wrong. Immediately his figure flashed, and he rushed toward the depths of the Black Sea, trying to escape. With Li Zongjio's temper, he would not let him go just like that. "I've already let you run away once. If you do it again, you won't have the chance to do it again." Boom. Li Zongjio and the Emperor of the Abyss were chasing each other in the sky above the Black Sea. The Emperor of the Abyss was actually able to use the power of the Black Sea to increase his speed. Li Zongjio also went all out, but he could not catch up with the Emperor of the Abyss. Immediately he used his own will. On the surface of the sea in front, a wall of Black Sea gradually rose. This was summoned by Li Zongjio's will. The Emperor of the Abyss wanted to rush over directly, but he heard a boom. He crashed straight into it, setting off an extremely terrifying vibration force. At the same time, the Emperor of the Abyss was also a little stunned by the impact. The Emperor of the Abyss stopped, and his head was about to split open. Because what he crashed into just now was the power of will released by Li Zongjio. With Li Zongjio's innate level 2 power of will, how could he not withstand it? How fast the Emperor of the Abyss was just now was how badly he crashed. Li Zongjio's figure also stopped. "Why did you stop running? Weren't you having fun running?" The corner of Li Zongjio's mouth lifted slightly. And just as Li Zongjio was about to finish off the Emperor of the Abyss, there seemed to be a strange power emerging from the surrounding Black Sea. Not far in front of Li Zongjio, on the surface of the Black Sea. It directly condensed into a whirlpool. From all directions, there was even an endless amount of dark power that quickly gathered in this whirlpool. Even Li Zongjio couldn't help but stop in the face of such a powerful aura. He even maintained a trace of vigilance. Who is it? In front of this powerful whirlpool, Li Zongjio was like an ant in front of an elephant. A strong enemy had appeared. Even the evil dragon god from before was not worth mentioning in front of this power. Li Zongjio glanced at the Emperor of the Abyss. How could this strange thing come up with so many tricks? Obviously, it was impossible. After all, the power of both sides was not the same. Therefore, for such a situation to occur, there must be a new expert. Above the whirlpool of black water, a figure slowly condensed under the gathering of the black water. It was a slender woman, and the robe on her body was formed by the black water. "I am the Lord of Blackwater. For you." The woman's long hair seemed to have merged with the black water. Then she opened her eyes, and a pair of black gem-like eyes looked at Li Zongjio in front of her. Chapter 1526. Black Sea Overlord? Li Zongjio looked at the person in front of him curiously. Although he was curious, even Li Zongjio did not dare to act rashly. The mysterious person in front of him was too powerful. He could feel a threat from him even from afar. His strength was far above him. How was this possible? Li Zongjio was currently at the peak of the human race. Whether it was in the Holy Martial Continent or the Holy Martial Realm, no one was a match for him. He could be said to be invincible in the world. As for the Abyss race, even the Emperor of the Abyss was chased by Li Zongjio, and it was only a matter of time before Li Zongjio killed the Emperor of the Abyss. However, where did the Black Sea Overlord come from? Could it be that this person was cultivating above the Black Sea? Was that why he called himself the Black Sea Overlord? Human race. The Black Sea Overlord glanced at Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio nodded subconsciously. For a human to be at your level, you're not weak. However, you're still far from the Celestial Realm. Celestial Realm? When Li Zongjio heard this term, he instantly felt that the obstacles blocking his path of cultivation had been punched hard. Although a new path had yet to appear, at least a crack had been created in the fixed power. As long as a crack appeared, many things would be much more convenient in the future. However, the Black Sea Overlord did not continue to communicate with Li Zongjio. Abyss race? The Black Sea Overlord looked at the man. Surprisingly, the Abyss Emperor couldn't help but nod in agreement. Obviously, this was the will of the Black Sea Overlord. Even the latter could not resist it. Originally, even Li Zongjio could not resist it, let alone the Abyss Emperor. The Abyss race should not be here. Go back. The Black Sea Overlord drew a line in the air with one hand. Then, a crack appeared behind the Emperor of the Abyss. The aura of the Abyssal clan came out of the rift. That Lord of the Black Sea actually tore through space with a single hand and directly found the Abyss realm. A powerful suction force sucked the Emperor of the Abyss in. In fact, Li Zongjio could clearly see the extreme shock in the eyes of the Emperor of the Abyss. He had finally managed to escape from the Abyss realm, but now he was sent back by this woman in the blink of an eye. I will definitely come back. The Emperor of the Abyss was thrown back. The crack disappeared. The space returned to normal. Only the Black Sea Overlord and Li Zongjio were left on the calm Black Sea. You're not a guardian of the human race? You don't have the smell of the heavenly book? The Black Sea Overlord glanced at Li Zongjio in astonishment. Li Zongjio nodded. I'm not. The real guardians had yet to appear. Although Li Zongjio had comprehended the human vein heavenly book, he hadn't accepted the identity of a guardian. Your current strength is still lacking. It's not impossible for you to break through with your own talent. Come and find me after you break through to the heaven realm. With that said, the Black Sea Overlord waved his hand at Li Zongjio. He sent Li Zongjio to the sky above Binhai City. He really returned to where he came from. Even Li Zongjio was stunned. Where did this person come from? She actually had such powerful strength. At that moment, Li Zongjio was also in a daze. He couldn't believe his eyes. This was the second time Li Zongjio had such a shocked expression. The first time was when he had just been reborn. He didn't expect such a thing to happen. However, it was an even more shocking moment now. The Black Sea Overlord was already unbelievably powerful. Following the latter's actions, he sent Li Zongjio here. At the same time, a piece of information appeared in his mind. This is... When Li Zongjio sensed the content of the information, he was completely shocked. This is the later cultivation realm. Li Zongjio only took a glance. He immediately felt that the cultivation realm was so vast and endless. At the same time, he could feel the strength of the Black Sea Overlord. At least a little. The Black Sea Overlord was an existence that could easily travel through space. For example, the Abyss realm was easily opened by the latter and the Abyss Emperor was thrown back. This meant that if the Black Sea Overlord wanted to go to the Abyss realm, it would only take a second to settle it. However, it was impossible for the Abyss race and the like to have the strength to break through space. Otherwise, they would have killed their way to the Shingwu continent long ago. Why would they wait for such a long time? Even Li Zongjio thought about it. Back then, when he faced the experts of the ape race, he didn't know if he could be a match for them. In comparison, the experts of the ape race didn't seem to have such strength. Otherwise, the ape race would have torn through space and come here directly. Needless to say, the fallen race. They weren't a match for them at all. One must know that the fallen race had put in so much effort and still couldn't transfer the beast god temple over. In the end, they were so miserable that they were wiped out. Postnatal, connate heavenly man. After Li Zongjio finished comprehending the information transmitted by the Black Sea Overlord, Li Zongjio was extremely shocked. At the same time, he understood the information within. There was a detailed division of cultivation realms. The Black Sea Overlord said that I'll look for her after I cultivate to the Heavenly Man realm? That means her strength is either at the Celestial realm, or even higher than that. The so-called postnatal realm. It meant that one would cultivate from the beginning as a Yuan Qi scholar to the Absolute Saint realm. When one broke through to the Absolute Saint realm, it was equivalent to stepping into the Khanate realm. For example, Li Zongjio had already stepped into the Khanate level 2. However, there were a total of 9 realms in the Khanate realm. In other words, Li Zongjio had to cultivate to the Khanate level 9 before breaking through. Only then would he be a heavenly man. There were also 9 realms in the heavenly man realm. As for elemental energy, in fact, all the cultivation methods were wrong. Elemental energy was never the main point of cultivation. The most important thing was willpower. The stronger one's willpower was, the more powerful the elemental energy one could mobilize. However, this principle could only be comprehended when a cultivator had truly stepped into the Khanate realm or even the heavenly man realm. What kind of feeling would it be when you realized that you had walked the wrong path after walking so far? Fortunately, although it was wrong, it wasn't too wrong. Moreover, there were benefits to taking the initiative to cultivate elemental energy. At least when there was no elemental energy around, one could still have elemental energy. It's really amazing. Li Zongjio carefully experienced it. He also felt that he had been completely subverted. It turned out that the cultivation of elemental energy had always been unnecessary. However, for many ordinary people, it was already very impressive to be able to cultivate elemental energy to the peak. Therefore, there was no need to subvert the entire cultivation system. However, if you wanted to break free from it, you had to have absolute strength. You had to accept all of this quickly. When ordinary people found out about all of this, they might break down immediately. However, Li Zongjio quickly calmed down. After all, this was something that Li Zongjio had already expected. In fact, when he was tempering his willpower, Li Zongjio had already noticed it. Now he had just verified it. I flew for more than half a day just to chase after that guy, but this Black Sea Overlord sent me back immediately. It was faster than the teleportation array. Chapter 1527. For a mysterious existence like Black Sea Overlord, other than being secretly shocked, Li Zongjio didn't have any other thoughts. However, it could be seen from this point. Back then, even if Li Zongjio didn't attack the fallen race might not have been able to occupy the sacred martial realm. Although the most powerful person in the sacred martial realm was heavenly sage Kunpeng, he could be considered half a guardian of the human race. However, in reality, this was only the strength on the surface. There were even more powerful existences hidden in the dark. An existence with such a cultivation level. Even at Li Zongjio's level, it was difficult to find him. As long as the other party didn't appear voluntarily. If Black Sea Overlord hadn't taken the initiative to appear, even if Li Zongjio searched the entire Black Sea, he wouldn't be able to find him. The difference in realm was too great. It was just like how ordinary people wanted to find a supremacy expert. They weren't in the same realm, so how could they find him? It was extremely surprising. Therefore, Li Zongjio understood. He was basically worrying for nothing. To have such time and opportunity, he might as well seize the time to cultivate. For the human race to exist for so long and write the human vein heavenly book, it was obviously not that simple. Otherwise, just look at how many races wanted to destroy the human race and occupy the human race's providence, but they had never succeeded. Right now, Li Zongjio had already made up his mind to cultivate properly in order to raise his strength and realm. What will the world become like after the heaven realm? I'm looking forward to it. Li Zongjio's eyes flickered. Li Zongjio happened to land outside Binhai City. Even Binhai City heard the commotion on Golden Island. Therefore, they quickly sent out a reconnaissance team. Although Li Zongjio was overseeing Binhai City, the ones who had to shoulder the main responsibility of protection were the Binhai Navy. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste to spend so much money to support these troops? Then Chu Wen and the others also rushed back. Everything that they had experienced before was like a dream to Chu Wen and the others. Such a perfect training island was destroyed in the blink of an eye. Then, evil Lord Li Zongjio had a great battle with the other side. It was an earth-shattering battle. In the end, he even let them run away. When Chu Wen and the others told him about what happened on Golden Island, Zhou Zheng and the rest were also in disbelief. She couldn't believe her ears. Soon, Zhang Hongliang's scouting fleet returned. Golden Island was indeed destroyed. It was such a big island. What kind of power was needed to destroy the Golden Island? It wasn't an exaggeration to say that Golden Island was larger than 5 Binhai cities combined. Otherwise, Golden Island wouldn't be so far away. The Xingyan dynasty had to spend a lot of effort to control it. After all, this island was basically full of mines. If he dug them all out, he wouldn't dare to believe it. Even if the entire Binhai Navy was mobilized and bombarded for a month, they might not be able to destroy Golden Island. In just a few minutes, Li Zongjio managed to turn the entire Golden Island into such a state. The power of a god-fiend. Zhang Hengliang immediately looked up and sighed. He didn't expect Li Zongjio's strength to be so terrifying. The legendary evil lord. No wonder he was able to rely on his own strength to cause the three great dynasties to be extremely fearful. The entire underworld had even become the Li family's world. Everything had to be done according to the Li family's wishes. Originally, Zhang Hengliang didn't think that the Li family was anything impressive. So what if they were powerful? He had 800,000 navy troops in Binhai City. How could he be afraid of them? But now he really knew how powerful they were. With Li Zongjio's strength, destroying Binhai City was basically a matter of yawning. When Li Zongjio returned, he didn't stay any longer. It was a good opportunity for Zhou Jing to gather all the disciples. They could set off and return. The training was over. Golden Island could have allowed them to train more. In addition, Li Zongjio could use this opportunity to relax. However, after seeing such a powerful existence like the Black Sea Overlord, he was shocked. Li Zongjio also understood that he was still far from being strong. Therefore, he had to increase his strength as quickly as possible. Qi Yanran's condition improved very quickly. She should recover in a few days. It was a good opportunity to make a trip to the Qi family. It had been a long time since he saw Qi Shaohun. After all, he was Li Zongjio's father-in-law. Shall we set off now? Zhou Jing asked after gathering everyone. That's right. Imperial tutor, why don't you stay for a few more days? There are still many unique places in Binhai City. When Zhang Hengliang knew that Li Zongjio was leaving, he hurriedly brought Zhang Ying over. This was his last chance, yet he was in such a hurry to leave. Could it be that he had not been a good host? It's nothing. The matter on Golden Island has been resolved. I won't waste any more time here. By the way, Commander Zhang, is your subordinate, General Zhang Ying, willing to teach at my Heavenly Sect Academy? Li Zongjio asked. Zhang Ying was stunned when he heard Li Zongjio's words. He stood at the side and didn't know what to do. He actually wanted him to go. This made Zhang Ying feel flattered. Zhang Ying? Teach? Zhang Hengliang thought that he had heard wrongly. There was actually such a good thing. It was simply unbelievable to Zhang Hengliang. Was this happiness coming too suddenly? This was something he had always dreamed of. As long as Zhang Ying could stay in the Heavenly Sect Academy, he would have more time and opportunities to come into contact with Li Zongjio. Moreover, in the Heavenly Sect Academy, his future would obviously be better. It was obvious just by looking at the treatment of the disciples in front of him. They would often throw some pills at their faces. If it were anyone else, they would be envious. There are 3 8th-grade pills in this porcelain bottle. Take it as your compensation. Li Zongjio looked at Zhang Ying and thought that he was unwilling, so he took out the porcelain bottle. Zhang Hengliang subconsciously took it, although his rationality told him not to take it and not to ruin his image in front of Li Zongjio. But in the end, his body was very honest and directly took it. Sir Imperial Tutor, you can't do this. Keep it. I'll get someone to send General Zhang's letter of appointment. General Zhang Jiang, please? I'll pack. No need to pack. You can buy anything in the Monarch City. Go quickly. Don't waste Imperial Tutor's time. If there's anything important, write me a letter and I'll send it to you. Go quickly. Hee, Sir Imperial Tutor, I'll leave my daughter to you. Zhang Hengliang also had an inexplicable smile, then looked at Zhang Ying in front of him. Little Ying, whether the family can prosper or not depends on you. Of course, these words were said in a very low voice. After Zhang Ying heard it, he rolled his eyes. How could there be such a father who insisted on pushing his own daughter away? This matter came too suddenly, but Zhang Ying was also a soldier, and this kind of sudden emergency situation was common. Zhou Jing also brought a simple airship. Since it was the Heavenly Sect Academy, it was normal for them to have 1 or 2 airships in their hands. What's more, the Heavenly Sect Academy had opened this faction before. Now, the Xingyan dynasty's most advanced Eagle battleship was mainly built by the White Deer Mansion. Therefore, they had quite a lot of experience in this aspect. The airship rose to the sky. Xia Shui chatted happily with Zhang Ying. After all, the two of them knew each other before. Although she was a little surprised that Li Zongjio directly recruited Zhang Ying, at least they could now cultivate together. It was also a good thing. Chapter 1528. The airship was slowly moving in the direction of Sacred Flame Royal City. Sacred Flame Royal City had now become the White Deer Mansion, which was Li Zongjio's territory. It was quite surprising. It was the first time they had seen such a thing. Moreover, the city guards all belonged to the White Deer Mansion. Fortunately, Emperor Xingyan had moved the capital quickly, so he still had time to cultivate his own trusted aides. At the same time, Emperor Xingyan was clear in his heart. It was impossible to use this method to stop Li Zongjio. He was just not interested in the position. If he was, he would have been finished long ago. There was no need for Li Zongjio to say anything more. The students in front of him were all diligently cultivating. They did not waste a single second. If Li Zongjio wanted to break through, only the evil dragon's eye could give him pressure and help him break through. It seemed that the owner of the evil dragon's eye was an existence equivalent to the celestial realm. It might even have surpassed the celestial realm. It was almost at the same level as the Black Sea Lord. After careful calculation, there were actually many experts in the celestial realm. There were celestial dragons in the dragon clan. There were also celestial realm experts in the human clan. Naturally, no one dared to stop the Tianzong Academy's airship wherever it passed. Even those who specialized in robbing in the air would immediately hide far away when they saw the Tianzong Academy's airship from afar. Moreover, the Tianzong Academy was now eliminating evil for the people everywhere. They had already killed countless of the Abyss clan. It was said that these people had directly rushed to the front lines of the battlefield. Such a dedication was naturally quite great in their eyes. With Tianzong Academy taking the lead, many other academies and academies followed suit. In fact, the other academies would have done such a thing. It was just that the Tianzong Academy beat them to it. Chao Wu Pavilion, Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. It was still the right-hand man of the Xingyan dynasty. However, with the intervention of the dynasty's royal family, a royal academy was established in Heaven and Earth's sacred city. The capital invested was also very large. However, it was said that within the royal school, there were many arrogant existences. Moreover, it seemed like there were a few geniuses among them, because their backgrounds were different from the rest. Other than the Tianzong Academy, which did not dare to provoke them, they had gradually begun to look down on the Imperial Martial Pavilion and the like. After all, some of the Imperial Martial Arts Pavilion's resources had been taken away after the Imperial Martial Arts Academy's support was transferred to the Imperial Martial Arts Academy. He probably couldn't hold on much longer. Currently, the Sky Sect Academy was also discussing the matter of merging into the Imperial Martial Academy. Although in the eyes of others, this was something impossible. However, the Tianzong Academy's headmaster was confident. This woman called Lan Yuyan was indeed not simple. To be able to do such a thing and make such a promise, however, it seemed that this project had been delayed a little recently. After all, there was some resistance. The airship streaked across the sky. After spending a total of 5 days, they finally returned to the sky above Sacred Flame Royal City. As for Zhang Ying's arrangements, Li Zongjio had also instructed Zhou Jing to inform Lan Yun. Such a small matter did not require Li Zongjio to personally handle it. The rest of the people also returned to the Tianzong Academy. Li Zongjio returned to the White Deer Mansion. Although the Tianzong Academy had lost a few disciples this time, it was not a big deal. Lan Yuyan also quickly arranged for the compensation to be sent to these people to shut their mouths, so as to prevent them from spouting nonsense. Li Zongjio returned to the White Deer Mansion and did not do anything else. He first went into seclusion for 3 days. After 3 days, Li Zongjio clearly felt that he seemed to have made a small breakthrough. It should be that after seeing the Black Sea Overlord, his body was also touched. Only then did he let go of this tight realm a little. However, in the world of the evil dragon's eye, there was no breakthrough. Now, the 9-headed snake only had 8 heads left. However, the speed and pressure were tens or even hundreds of times higher than before. Li Zongjio had no choice but to break free from it. He continued to cultivate according to this method. It was simply a masochistic behavior. Ordinary people would not be able to tolerate it. After 3 days, Li Zongjio also came out of seclusion to rest. At the same time, Xiao Zhao also came to report. Basically, all the people of the Devouring Yuan clan in the Azure Sea Academy had been found. It was not difficult to trace the identity of these people, even if the master of the Azure Sea Academy had done a lot of work before. In the human race's society, there would always be many clues left behind. With Xiao Zhao's ability, it was naturally very difficult to dig them out. If we directly kill them, it will definitely cause some unnecessary trouble and influence. I suggest that we organize a trial and then kill them one by one during the trial, Xiao Zhao said. Then, he carefully explained his plan to the others. Of course, they could not kill everyone at once. That would also attract attention. Although the White Deer Mansion did not care and even used a lot of power to suppress it, it was more obvious that it would be more troublesome. But in that case, it was obviously more troublesome. Some secret arrangements would be made here, and naturally, the matter would be settled without anyone knowing. Multi-pronged approach. Okay, we'll do as you say, Li Zongjio said. Yes, young master. Oh right, young master, there's news from Miss Longji. The situation is under control, but Miss Longji can't get away for the time being. Recently, Dean Lan Yuyen wants to merge the Imperial Martial Academy into the Sky Sect Academy. Can we merge the Imperial Martial Academy into the Sky Sect Academy? Li Zongjio was surprised after hearing this. This idea was very bold. As expected of Kuin Arashi's sister, she had such great courage. Then go ahead and do it. Is there a problem? Li Zongjio asked. Of course there isn't a big problem. This is an inevitable trend. It's just that the Imperial Martial Academy's Inner Elders Guild is obstructing us. Imperial Martial Academy's Inner Elders Guild. It was Li Zongjio's first time hearing this. Where did this come from? They are all retired instructors of the Imperial Martial Academy. But because they are very experienced, they have a lot of status and influence. It means that these old farts are looking for trouble. Li Zongjio understood. These people all had old-school thinking, which was why such a thing happened. This group of people had prestige and status, so it was impossible to use force. Otherwise, it would affect the reputation that the Sky Sect Academy had built up. At the same time, there would be some hidden dangers with the Imperial Martial Academy, which was about to merge into the Imperial Martial Academy. When that time came, it would not be so smooth. Therefore, he needed to use another method to get them to agree. They were all pedantic and stubborn people who didn't have much ability. Li Zongjio could easily deal with them. If it were other people, they might have a lot of scruples. However, after meeting Li Zongjio, the situation was no longer up to them. Inform them that I want to have a meeting with them tomorrow night. You can decide the location, Li Zongjio said. There were always some people who thought they were infallible, so Li Zongjio needed to come out and kill their spirit. Li Zongjio came at the right time. Xiao Zhao quickly agreed. Then I'll go to the Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Tower. The Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Tower. It was also Zishuan Court's territory. Now, under Yun Qi's management, the Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Tower had become an elegant place. Moreover, not just anyone could enter. Only those who were recognized by Zishuan Court and were also friends of the White Deer Mansion could enter. In fact, there weren't many people with such identities. The news that Li Zongjio asked the Imperial Martial Academy's inner elders to go to the Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Tower for a meeting quickly spread throughout the city. Lan Yuyen also arrived early. They didn't expect Li Zongjio to be willing to come out personally to mediate this matter. Obviously, Li Zongjio attached great importance to the Sky Sect Academy. Chapter 1529. The Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Inn was a famous inn in the Sacred Flame Imperial City. Anyone who could enter and leave this place was basically someone with a certain status. Even if they weren't now, they would be in the future. However, today, the Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Inn welcomed a group of white-haired old men. These old men walked with a majestic gait. Although their hair was completely white, in reality, they possessed a rather strong essence, energy, and spirit. Although they were old, it didn't stop them from being in a state of high spirits. Anyone with a bit of eyesight could at least recognize one or two of them. Some of them looked familiar, but they couldn't remember where they had seen them before. Hey, isn't that the teacher of the war god from 50 years ago? Yeah, that person looks familiar too. I think he was one of the 10 war gods. 3 of them were directly taught by him. These people, aren't they the old seniors of the Imperial Martial Pavilion? Why are they suddenly gathered together today? These people had already retired and hadn't appeared for a long time. Moreover, they had never asked about the affairs of the underworld. They didn't dare to say much about the affairs of the imperial court. If they crossed the line even a little, it would be an act of treason. They had been silent for many years, but they were actually invited out today. Didn't you hear? Lord Evil Lord of the White Deer Mansion invited them to participate in this meeting. TSK, I really don't know what will happen. Don't tell me it's going to be a Hongmen banquet? Some nosy people started to talk about it. They were all talking about it at the corners of the streets. It attracted the interest of many people. Soon, Wang Ding actually brought a large number of troops to seal off the road. They directly sealed off the road, and no one was allowed to enter or leave. Those who weren't important were all pushed aside. They were all pushed aside. Obviously, the atmosphere was very tense, and those who saw it could not help but feel a sense of panic in their hearts. Some nosy people were also chased away. A carriage slowly drove over. It was the dean of the Celestial Sect Academy, Lan Yun. It was said that the dean of the Celestial Sect Academy was a young woman who acted swiftly and decisively. Many important things were also done by this woman. Without her orders, many things would not have been possible. However, it was impossible for ordinary people to see Lan Yuyen's face. Now, he was finally fortunate enough to see Lan Yuyen's true appearance. Although it was just a quick glance, it made the crowd boil. Was this the legendary dean of the Celestial Sect Academy? By the time most of the people had arrived, Yi Zichen was already in a daze. An ordinary carriage slowly drove over. However, with the appearance of this ordinary carriage, the city guards at the scene became nervous. They pushed back the 200 onlookers by a large step. The roads on both sides were cleared. Such an empty area was created. Even Wang Ding personally went up to greet him, bringing along his trusted aides. He was incomparably respectful to the person who had come. It was obvious that the identity of the person in the carriage was not ordinary. Li Zongjio stepped out of the carriage. When he saw the street full of soldiers and so many onlookers, those who did not know would think that the emperor had come out. Why did you arrange so many people? It's a nuisance. Leave, Li Zongjio said. Wang Ding was shocked when he heard that. Yes, young master. Wang Ding immediately gave the order to restore order on the street. At the same time, Li Zongjio walked into the Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Tower. Yun Qi was already waiting at the door. When he saw Li Zongjio coming, he quickly went up to greet him. Young master, you haven't been here for a long time. Yun Qi said with a smile. Is everyone here? Li Zongjio asked. Everyone is here. However, one person refused to come. Refused to come? Li Zongjio frowned. He said that young master is a demon lord and does not deserve to be on the same side as the Martial World Pavilion. Yun Qi hesitated for a moment, but finally said it out loud. Li Zongjio didn't like to beat around the bush. If he had something to say, it would be better for him to say it directly. When Li Zongjio heard this, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He did not expect to meet such a tough guy. However, Li Zongjio did not come here to waste time. Wang Ding, who was waiting outside, quickly came in. Yes, young master. Bring me the head of this old man whose name I don't know. I'll give you an hour, Li Zongjio ordered. Li Zongjio was not a kind person. Talk about justice and morality? That was not talking about it. So what if you made a great contribution to the Martial World Pavilion? So what if you had a high reputation in the underworld? It had nothing to do with him. Since you refuse to lower your head, I'll take your head off. Li Zongjio then came to the private room. The room was full of old men. Looking at the situation, Lan Yuyen had already communicated with these people before Li Zongjio came. However, they seemed to be very dissatisfied with the result or process of the communication. Otherwise, such a situation would not have happened. Dean Lan, how was the conversation with them? Li Zongjio walked to Lan Yuyen and sat down. This seat was the main seat. Lan Yuyen sat on the left, but there was an empty seat on the right. Logically speaking, this seat should be the seat of the most senior person. However, the latter had obviously given up on this seat. The masters do not want to develop for a long time. They think that joining the Sky Sect Academy is betraying their ancestors and forgetting their roots. Lan Yuyen said faintly. There was no warmth in her eyes. Looking at these old farts in front of her, she did not have a good feeling. The current pavilion master of the Martial World Pavilion had obviously agreed. However, he was obstructed by these people. That's right. The Martial World Pavilion has been established in the Qingyan dynasty for 270 years. It was founded by the retired emperor himself. How can it fall into the hands of an outsider? Li Zongjio, even if you are the imperial tutor, you want to get your hands on the ancestors' things. Aren't you already deceiving the emperor and offending your superiors? An old man said righteously. Bin Qianji was also full of anger. They couldn't wait to scold Li Zongjio, who was standing in front of them. This scolding had clearly ignited everyone's rebellious spirit. One after another, the entire scene became incomparably noisy. Lan Yuyen looked at Li Zongjio. She wanted to see how Li Zongjio was going to deal with this situation. After all, this situation was indeed quite tricky. There was no other way. Neither soft nor hard tactics worked. If she could use force, Lan Yuyen did not mind using force. One should know that there was still Kuan Castle behind Lan Yuyen. Now, Kuan Castle was almost in a situation where they were cooperating with White Deer Mansion. Xiao Zhao naturally would not let such a good opportunity go to waste. With Li Zongjio's relationship, there were almost no difficulties or barriers when they cooperated with these top forces. Therefore, in the area of trade, there were many convenient situations that were directly developed. However, Li Zongjio drank his tea very calmly. Give me a few more plates of pastries. I see that these people are hungry. Li Zongjio said. No matter how much you shout, I will not be angry. What can you do to me? It wasn't until Li Zongjio said this that the scene quieted down a little. You are all so old. How many more years do you have left to live? Li Zongjio opened his mouth and said directly. Wouldn't this offend them instantly? Dying early or dying late, isn't it the same word for death? Li Zongjio shook his head helplessly. I called you here today to tell you that if you are obedient, you don't have to die. If you are disobedient. Just as he was speaking, Wang Ding walked in from outside the room. In his hand was a cloth bag that was dripping blood. Li Zongjio gestured, and Wang Ding threw the cloth bag in his hand on the table. When he opened it, there was a human head inside, glaring angrily. It stared straight at the people present. It's the Great Elder. The Great Elder. When the people saw the human head, they were all shocked. Li Zongjio, you are rebelling. One of them pointed at Li Zongjio and roared. Seeing this, Wang Ding directly stepped forward, raised his sword and slashed. But another head rolled on the table. Clean and neat. Chapter 1530. After chopping off a head, these people had a little understanding of what silence was. Li Zongjio was simply audacious and lawless. Even Lan Yuyen was stunned. She didn't expect Li Zongjio to be so ruthless. In such a situation, it might cause a strong backlash. Moreover, it would obviously cause some bad rumors among the students in the future. It wouldn't be convenient for teaching management in the future. However, these were all things for the future. Perhaps Li Zongjio did this because he was confident that he could solve the problem. Li Zongjio sat in his original position without moving. He signaled to Yun Qi behind him. Yun Qi nodded and then placed a porcelain bottle in front of each old man. In the bottle, there are 10 longevity pills. One pill can prolong your life by 10 years. Li Zongjio said lightly. Prolong your life by 10 years. 10 pills. Wouldn't that add up to 100 years? All these old men opened their eyes wide. There was actually such a good thing. How could it be possible? However, they also heard that Li Zongjio was a top alchemist. For these people who already had one foot in the coffin, they were not afraid of death. He had lived for such a long time. What had he not seen? They were not afraid of death. However, when you knew that you could continue to live for another 100 years, who would be willing to die? They were not afraid of death because there was no other way. If you couldn't find a way to live, there was only death. Therefore, there was nothing to be afraid of. However, what you did now was a bit too much. You actually put such an opportunity to prolong your life by 100 years in front of you. For these old men, this was simply a fatal temptation and attraction. No one would be able to resist such an attractive temptation. Humph, wild ambition. What longevity pill? Maybe it's something highly poisonous. You just want to poison us to death in one breath. Swish. Wang Ding, who was behind him, directly chopped down with his saber. He directly chopped this arrogant man, who was suspected of being poisoned, into 2 halves. Everyone can see that it's not poison. Li Zongjio said. This meant that if Li Zongjio wanted to kill them, there was no need for him to poison them. Li Zongjio immediately stood up. Alright Wang Ding, you stay here and watch. Those who took the pills can leave. As for those who didn't, you can do as you see fit. Masters? I'll give you 3 minutes to discuss. After that, Li Zongjio and Lan Yuan also left. This combination of kindness and authority could be said to have been displayed to the extreme. No one could resist such temptation. Under such pressure, how could they not submit? It was simply a well-dug hole for them to jump into. Was there any other choice? Was there even a need to consider? If you really want to save your face, you can keep your face when the knife comes down, but your head will be gone. On the contrary, as long as everyone put down their pride, they could obtain 100 years of life. To live for another 100 years. Who wouldn't be willing? If they could live, who would want to die like this? Wang Ding looked at the so-called masters in front of him with a sneer. He gave them too much face and really thought of himself as someone important. Lan Yuyan also wanted to stabilize the reputation of the academy, so she didn't do anything to them. Now, the bad guy was Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio didn't care at all. Reputation was no longer useful to Li Zongjio, and Li Zongjio never cared about it. What use could it be? Not long after Li Zongjio and Lan Yuyan walked out, someone couldn't sit still. He stood up and bowed to the people present, then picked up the bottle on the table and turned to walk out. This gesture was extremely abrupt in the eyes of others, but it wasn't a big deal. This was because they would all make the same choice in the future. 100 years of life was in front of them. How could it be so easy to refuse? Immediately, the group of people prepared quickly. They put away the elixirs on the table. They walked out one after another. Wang Ding looked at the people in front of him with a sneer. At least they knew what was good for them. If they didn't know what was good for them, he would directly chop them up. That was simple. These spineless people actually dared to challenge the young master. Originally, Wang Ding was prepared to kill all of them here. But it was obvious that the young master was benevolent and was willing to give them a way out. In the end, everyone took the pills and walked out of the room. This also meant that they had tacitly accepted the matter of the Imperial Martial Pavilion. This was good too. The only pity was the 3 heads lying on the table. It was these 3 heads that landed on the table. Originally, they could have lived for another 100 years. In these 100 years, who knows what kind of fortuitous encounter would allow them to break through the limit of their lifespan and achieve immortality. It wasn't impossible. How could they give up on their lives so easily? It was disrespectful to his parents to throw away his life so easily. How could they do such a thing? They must be severely criticized. They must not let their descendants learn from them. Li Zongjio and Lan Yuyan didn't go far. It was also in the pavilion opposite that these so-called inner court elders walked out one by one, full of vigor. Their faces were flushed, as if they had picked up a great bargain. Lan Yuyan couldn't do anything about these people's faces. Did you really give them the prolongation elixirs? Lan Yuyan couldn't help but ask. First of all, the prolongation elixirs might really exist, but Li Zongjio couldn't possibly say that he would refine these elixirs and leave them here for these people. He would refine these elixirs especially for these people. One of them is. Li Zongjio said calmly. He was the evil lord. He never kept his word. He did whatever he wanted without fear. He was unscrupulous. These people were making things difficult for Li Zongjio and making him waste so much time here. How could he let these people have an easy time? There's only one in each bottle? No, there's only one elixir among all the elixirs. Li Zongjio shook his head. And this one is in my hands. As Li Zongjio said, he also took out this elixir and showed it to them. Lan Yuyen was simply speechless by Li Zongjio's methods. He really had a lot of strange tricks and didn't give people a way out at all. It was impossible to take advantage of Li Zongjio. Being able to let them live was already the greatest gift. Okay, everything here is settled. If there's anything, just call me. Li Zongjio said. Tianzong Academy, you can do whatever you want. It must become the #1 academy. Don't worry, I will exhaust all my efforts. Lan Yuyen said firmly. Her eyes were full of hope for the future of Tianzong Academy. Just as Li Zongjio was thinking about whether to have a meal together, there was some movement from the Green Bird platform. Li Zongjio knew that Qi Yanran was about to recover. I'll go first. After saying that, Li Zongjio's figure also jumped and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Lan Yuyen had long been used to Li Zongjio's solitary and swift behavior, and these people of the Inner Elders Guild of Chaowu Pavilion could only blame themselves for being too greedy and wanting to take advantage of others. What about protecting the ancestors? Protect my ass. But Chaowu Pavilion's merging into Tianzong Academy was going to be busy. Li Zongjio returned to the White Deer Mansion. He took out the Green Bird platform. A strange wave of energy came from the Blue Bird platform. Waves of energy gradually spread out. Li Zongjio also sat quietly outside the Green Bird platform. But at this moment, there seemed to be a fluctuation of energy on the Green Bird platform, and it became quite chaotic. Oh no, this girl can't control it. Li Zongjio was slightly surprised. Obviously, Qi Yanran had accidentally broken through her own realm during this process. But this breakthrough was too sudden and difficult to control, and there was a danger of Qi deviation at any time. Immediately, Li Zongjio released his mind power. It wrapped around the Green Bird platform. He tried his best to stabilize this wild and violent power. Chapter 1531. The energy waves released from the Green Bird platform. Li Zongjio felt that it was very troublesome. What exactly did this girl experience in the Green Bird platform to have such a big breakthrough? Fortunately, Li Zongjio also had a big breakthrough during this period of time. Therefore, he could more or less control this energy and prevent it from spreading everywhere. At the same time, he guided Qi Yanran to temporarily suppress this energy. This was equivalent to guiding Qi Yanran to control her own energy. This control lasted for a full 5 days. Finally, it stabilized. Li Zongjio breathed a sigh of relief. Then he saw a figure gradually appear on the Green Bird platform. It was Qi Yanran. Zongjio. When Qi Yanran opened her eyes, she saw Li Zongjio in front of her. These days, if Li Zongjio had not helped her, it would have been difficult for her to get through this ordeal. Without saying a word, Qi Yanran flew up and hugged Li Zongjio fiercely. This time, it took more than a month to heal his injuries. This made Qi Yanran very anxious. She was afraid that Li Zongjio would be too worried. Alright, it's okay. I've dealt with it. I've killed those people from the Devouring Yuan clan. Li Zongjio said faintly. If these people from the Devouring Yuan clan had not hurt Qi Yanran, Li Zongjio would not have taken revenge so crazily. It could be said that he had really killed all of them. A few days ago, Xiao Zhao had completed the task of cleaning up the Azure Sea Academy. The members of the Devouring Yuan clan had been deliberately avoiding contact with the human race. Therefore, after getting rid of them, they did not leave any trouble behind. Even if there was trouble, they were directly dealt with. Now, it was said that these people from the Devouring Yuan clan and some others were scattered in other places. Li Zongjio also ordered people to continue investigating. Anyway, they had to go against these people from the devouring Yuan clan. They have a strange ability that can seal my origin energy, Qi Yanran said. She was also worried that these people would harm Li Zongjio. In fact, they had already found a way to deal with the devouring Yuan clan. That was poisoning. Sometimes he didn't even need to do it himself. Don't worry, they're not that impressive. You seem to have made a huge breakthrough in your strength? Li Zongjio also checked the situation and found that the latter's willpower cultivation had already reached the Xiantian level. Moreover, their strength was not below that of Li Zongjio. That was why Li Zongjio was so surprised. One must know that the reason why Li Zongjio was able to reach his current level of cultivation was all because of the evil dragon's eye. Under such inhumane devastation. That was why there was such a breakthrough. However, looking at Qi Yanran, it seemed that she did not suffer much and had already reached the level 2 Xiantian realm. It's also because of the power of inheritance. The inheritance of the Green Bird platform is no small matter. Even the 3 elders of the Sparrow Divine Palace were not clear about it. Qi Yanran said immediately, I don't know about the other 2 clans, but this Green Bird platform was not refined by the Heavenly Sparrow clan. It was just found by them. From this Green Bird platform, I learned some secrets. For example, we are now at the Xiantian realm, but above that is the Celestial realm. Above the Celestial realm, there are even more powerful existences. This Green Bird platform is most likely created by an expert who has surpassed the Celestial realm. Qi Yanran said. If Li Zongjio had not met the Black Sea Overlord, he would have been very surprised by what Qi Yanran had said. However, he was now clear about the cultivation level. It was extremely difficult to reach the Celestial realm. Refined by an expert who has surpassed the Celestial realm? Li Zongjio carefully observed the Green Bird platform. It was indeed powerful to be able to obtain such a treasure. Therefore, Li Zongjio was very envious. Unlike himself, he could only rely on his talent and experience to cultivate here. If he did not have the 3,000 years of cultivation experience from his previous life, he would not have been able to cultivate here. Li Zongjio estimated that he was only in Yuan King now, not even in Yuan Emperor. The gap was quite big. I know about this too. Some time ago, I met a top expert in the Black Sea. This person was at least in the Celestial realm. Li Zongjio also told her about the Lord of the Black Sea. After all, he and Qi Yanran were the only ones who could exchange information with each other now. The 2 of them also talked for a long time. Later on, they walked to the top of the mountain and enjoyed the quiet time. Then, Li Zongjio gave the flying elixir that he had refined previously to Qi Yanran. It was a grade 11 elixir after all. It was worth a lot. Even Qi Yanran was completely stunned when she saw the grade 11 elixir. He could actually refine a grade 11 elixir. I didn't expect you to be able to refine grade 11 elixir. I've slacked off. Qi Yanran said in surprise. Obviously, in Qi Yanran's eyes, Li Zongjio was the real scary one. He obviously didn't have any inheritance and relied on his talent to cultivate here. In addition to the cultivation of his origin force cultivation. In alchemy, even the study and cultivation of formations, he had never fallen behind. This was what truly astonished and shocked people. Such a Li Zongjio was really too scary. Where did such a strong talent come from? It was simply superhuman. I haven't seen your father for a long time. Let's go to your house for dinner tonight, Li Zongjio said. Sure. After all, the Qi family was also in the Sacred Flame Royal City. It was only 2 steps away. He left as soon as he said so. He walked down from the back mountain of the White Deer Mansion. Li Zongjio and Qi Yanran walked in the direction of the Qi family. When they were on the street, they also bought some small daily things and didn't prepare any expensive gifts. Li Zongjio also asked people to send ordinary elixirs and other things. Of course, if there was anything good, he wouldn't forget to send it to the Qi family. And now that Qi Yanran was in the Qi family, there were some things that didn't need Li Zongjio at all. Otherwise, in the Qi family's eyes, it would even feel that this was Li Zongjio's charity. So sometimes, it was still difficult to be a person. So he casually bought some small gifts and paid a visit. When the guards of the Qi family saw Qi Yanran and Li Zongjio coming over, they were shocked. They couldn't believe their eyes. Miss, Evil Lord. Evil Lord. After confirming again and again, they rubbed their eyes. When they saw that it was a real person, they hurriedly sent someone to inform them. Okay, there's no need to inform them. We'll go in ourselves. Under the shocked and envious gaze of the guards at the door, the two walked in. A talented man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. Those who could be arranged to guard the gate were generally very discerning. Otherwise, it would be very easy to offend some big shots. This was a very troublesome matter. Qi Shaohun hadn't seen him for a long time. Now, he was Li Zongjio's father-in-law, but the two of them were like peers. I treat you as a brother, but you actually flirted with my daughter. This was also a sentence that Qi Shaohun often said. But in this world, was there anyone more reliable than Li Zongjio? And in this world, there was no one more outstanding than Li Zongjio. Therefore, to be able to give his daughter to Li Zongjio was the most perfect thing for Qi Shaohun. If Li Zongjio dared to bully Qi Yanran, Qi Shaohun would no longer care so much. Even if he couldn't win, he would fight with his life. Naturally, it was quite nostalgic to meet again. Although it was a temporary visit, it was very easy for the Qi family to cook 2 more dishes. Li Zongjio and Qi Shaohun were drinking and chatting. Qi Yanran was pouring wine at the side. After drinking, Qi Shaohun, who had not been drunk for more than 10 years, was directly drunk under the table. After you refine the elixir, we'll go to Luoxia City and meet my parents. Okay. Qi Yanran also responded in a low voice. Anyway, Qi Yanran was now a Xiantian expert, but when she thought of meeting Li Zongjio's parents in a very formal way, she was very nervous. She was still extremely nervous. This had nothing to do with strength. But before this, Qi Yanran had seen Li Zongjio's parents, but at that time, they were not married. Chapter 1532. In the next few days, Li Zongjio also cultivated normally. Qi Yanran took the soaring pill given by Li Zongjio and her cultivation improved greatly. The effect of this pill was too strong for ordinary people to bear. Only experts of this realm could completely absorb and digest the effect of this pill. Otherwise, it would be a waste to give it to others. It might even be life-threatening. Li Zongjio and Qi Yanran also went back to Luoxia City. In Luoxia City, they also had a happy meal together. Since they were back, they might as well stay in Luoxia City for a while. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. Li Zongjio's cultivation had reached the bottleneck of innate level 2. He didn't know how long it would take for him to break through to innate level 3. Therefore, Li Zongjio also prepared to do some other things. He personally came to the untainted land. He found the teleportation array from back then and rearranged it. After sending a few primordial stones into it, Li Zongjio was directly teleported to the sacred martial realm, in the great Yan Imperial Palace where Chu Yingguan was. When he felt Li Zongjio's teleportation formation moving, he hurriedly brought people to investigate. He didn't expect it to be Li Zongjio. Evil Lord Senior. When he saw Li Zongjio appear, Chu Yingguan was very happy. After all, Li Zongjio had made so many contributions to them and saved the entire sacred martial realm. He was very touched and respected. Before he could repay him properly, Li Zongjio directly opened the teleportation formation and flew away. They were at a loss as to what to do. After Li Zongjio came back, he didn't say much. Instead, he asked Chu Yingguan to help him find a person. It was the old man who sold the Luban locks in Jinchang City. At that time, Li Zongjio didn't expect that he would be so lucky to meet the person who designed Jinchang City. Now that he appeared, of course, he had to invite this master. Chu Yingguan and Xia Lin naturally found the old man very quickly. Gong Sunlun, Li Zongjio had been away for almost a year. When he saw Li Zongjio again, Gong Sunli felt a sense of loss. At that time, I thought you were just saying it casually. I didn't expect it to be true. When Gong Sunli saw Li Zongjio, he was also in a trance, as if he was in a dream. He was very excited about Li Zongjio's appearance. Although Li Zongjio might have just mentioned it casually back then, Gong Sun Li had really remembered it. He thought that Li Zongjio had forgotten about it, but now he suddenly came looking for him. I'm here to take you to a place. It's a long trip. If you have anything to tell me or to prepare, you can do it. I'll give you 2 days. It's okay. This old man is all alone. I can leave at any time. Gong Sun Li said. Li Zongjio immediately nodded. Okay, then let's go. The teleportation formation here has been stabilized. I will come here often in the future. The last sentence was said to Chu Yengguan. Won't evil lords stay for a few more days? No need. Chu Yengguan also wanted to talk to Li Zongjio about something, but since Li Zongjio left in such a hurry, he might have other things to do. In this case, Chu Yengguan didn't force him to stay. What's more, Li Zongjio said that he would come here often, so he waited for the time being. After all, the matter wasn't very serious. Li Zongjio directly took Gong Sun Li through the teleportation formation and returned to the Shengwu continent. When Gong Sun Li arrived at the Shengwu continent, he was very surprised. Although there were such legends in the past, they were still quite shocked when they saw the other side of the continent. But at least he could accept it. This is the Luoxia city, but my request this time is a little different. Li Zongjio brought him to the Luoxia city. The people around also introduced Gong Sun Li to them. Qi Yanran was learning to cook from Xinshi recently. Li Tianqing and many other people, including Nangong Wuji, were also here. After all, the White Deer Mansion was designed by him, so he was very experienced in this aspect. After greeting them, Li Zongjio also brought him to the Fog Snow Alchemy sect. Looking at the Luoxia city from the Fog Snow Alchemy sect's direction, they could see the situation of the Luoxia city. Lord, what's your request? I want the whole mountain to float like the Jinchang city. Li Zongjio said. In the Shengwu realm, the Jinchang city was just a city in the sky. But after seeing the Dragon Island, Li Zongjio also had a sudden idea. If he directly supported the Luoxia mountain, it would definitely have a very good effect. Of course, this project could be said to be quite big. Ordinary people didn't dare to imagine. Maybe it was just imagination, but they definitely didn't dare to imagine that he would really appear. The whole mountain will float? Nangong Wuji could say that it was impossible to make the whole city float above the ground. But now, he actually wanted to make the whole mountain float. This was too exaggerated. How is this possible? Nangong Wuji kept saying, impossible, and shook his head crazily. How could such a thing happen? He had never seen it before. Li Zongjio didn't take Nangong Wuji to the Dragon Island to have a look. When he took Nangong Wuji to have a look, he knew how narrow his vision was. However, Gong Sun Li didn't directly shake his head to deny it. Instead, he was seriously considering it. Actually, the difficulty of making a mountain float in the air is much lower than making a city float in the air. What we need to specifically consider now is to have enough power, and we also need a force to stabilize the entire mountain. Gong Sun Li said. As for how to do it, I don't care. I don't understand. I'll leave it to you. If you need anything, you can find him. Li Zongjio said. Of course, he didn't need to worry about this matter anymore. My father will do his best to help. If you can't find me, you can find my father. No problem. Gong Sun Li seemed to be put in an important position. In such a situation, he had to work harder. Otherwise, he wouldn't be worthy of Evil Lord's trust. At first, Nangong Wuji didn't believe Gong Sun Li very much. He even thought that Gong Sun Li was an old liar. But in several seminars later, Gong Sun Li learned something new. Some of the knowledge and opinions Gong Sun Li shared were very useful to Nangong Wuji. Immediately, Nangong Wuji knew that he had met an expert. Gong Sun Li's ideas were too advanced. He didn't know where Gong Sun Li came from. How could he have so many wonderful ideas? First of all, Gong Sun Li proposed the origin energy thruster. As long as this thing was produced, it would be able to push things off the ground with a pushing force. Now, some airships, flying boats, and warships were also using this thing. But Nangong Wuji had never had such an idea. Just by imagining it, he felt that it was a little exciting. Then, these people directly threw themselves into the crazy research. Under the organization of Li Tianqing, Li Tianqing directly established a Heaven City project. And these people were directly appointed as members of the Heaven City Project Research Institute. With a title, it was obvious that they would have more backbone when it came to work. Their strength was activated. Li Tianqing also constantly recruited people with different professional abilities on this continent. As long as they could be of use, he would directly transfer them. Suddenly, the situation of Luoxia City became a very important point of attention for the major forces. Almost the entire continent focused their attention on this place. They wanted to see if this Heaven City could be built. In addition to cultivation, Li Zongjiu often went to the Heaven Sect Academy to investigate. At this moment, in the sacred martial realm, in front of Chu Yengguan was a group of civil officials and military generals. Jiang Bai was among them. They were all Chu Yengguan's confidants. At this moment, they seemed to be waiting for something and kept looking outside the door. Chapter 1533. Finally, a figure landed on the ground. It was a young man with a long ruler in his hand. Boom. After landing on the ground, he didn't seem to be able to control his strength well and created 2 deep craters on the ground. How are you? Jiang Bai hurriedly stepped forward and helped Fu Ding up. The latter looked rather miserable. They're too strong. Fu Ding was in a mess. The battle a few nights ago had really left Fu Ding in dire straits. Moreover, his opponent's strength was beyond his imagination. They were much stronger than him. Therefore, he was no match for them. It was all thanks to the demon-suppressing ruler that Lin Fan was able to make it back alive. Otherwise, he would have died right there and then. These 8 men are too strong. We can't underestimate them. Now, half of the primordial beasts in the 100,000 mountains are under their command. Moreover, these 8 men seem to be more intelligent than us. They've declared that they're going to build a primordial beast empire. Fu Ding told them all the news that he had obtained today. However, everyone was in disbelief. These 8 men were too bold and crazy. They actually declared that they were going to build a primordial beast empire. Are you kidding me? A group of beasts without intelligence actually wanted to build an empire? These 8 men are very strange. They're good at using weapons, but they're also good at fighting. They learn things very quickly. They've even learned how to speak. A civil official said. This person had been paying attention to the ape race for a long time. After all, the appearance of the ape race was too abnormal. As for why they would appear in the 100,000 mountain range, it was also surprising. He was extremely puzzled. It was impossible to investigate. The ape men were like a plague. They came with great momentum. How long had it been since they started to build a primordial beast empire? Senior brother Fu Ding, please go to the sacred mountain and tell them about the situation here. The sacred mountain also took action in the fallen beast divine temple incident. Their performance was not bad. Although they were a little cowardly in the beginning, at least they had lost a lot of people. Moreover, Kunpeng Heavenly Saint and Li Zongjiu had a good relationship. Although there were 2 heaven saints in the Great Yen Kingdom, who would be willing to take out their trump cards unless it was a crisis. Alright, this matter is very serious. We can't afford to delay it. Fu Ding didn't rest that night. He quickly rushed to the sacred mountain and conveyed the news of the ape clan in the 100,000 mountains. If the heavenly sage Kunpeng were to hear about the ape race, he would definitely break down on the spot. This was because he had just sent away the fallen race, and in the blink of an eye, another ape race had appeared. Wasn't this giving him, heavenly sage Kunpeng, something to do? Heavenly sage Kunpeng wanted to cry but had no tears. He just wanted to cultivate properly. Why did people come out every day and force him to fight with his life on the line? Originally, when he saw Li Zongjiu last time, he was going to tell Li Zongjiu about this matter. After all, it was not a small matter, and it was a very abnormal situation. However, the matter at that time hadn't reached a very serious situation, so he held back. Li Zongjiu also had his own things to do. He couldn't go to Li Zongjiu every time there was a disturbance. Chu Yenguan was Qi Yanran's disciple. Fu Ding was Li Zongjiu's disciple. Therefore, the two of them also called each other senior and junior brother. Whether it was in age or the time when they entered the sect, Chu Yanguan was older. Although she wasn't as strong as Fu Ding, she still had a lot of say in this regard. Fu Ding's thoughts were more simple and direct. Therefore, he listened to Chu Yanguan's instructions. What's more, when Li Zongjio left, he also said that he should listen to Chu Yanguan's instructions. The ape clan was secretly developing in the 100,000 mountains. No one knew what would happen in the end. Tonight, Fu Ding also went to find out the situation of the other party. Unexpectedly, he fought with the guards of the ape clan and retreated. After all, it was Li Zongjio's disciple. It wasn't so easy to take down Fu Ding. Only then did he have the chance to come back and report. The other major countries also already knew, but they didn't take any action first. Because the closest to the 100,000 mountains now was the Great Yen. Everything could wait until the Great Yen was in trouble, then slowly prepare. Therefore, this matter was just like that. Now, they were watching from the side and were not in a hurry to take action. Xingu Continent. Luoxia City had been reinforced by the formation. Now, the origin energy thruster had been manufactured. It was already the second year. In the first year of the experiment, thousands of failures had occurred. It could be said that Gong Sun Li had experienced countless failures. After all, it was the entire Gong Sun family who was creating it. However, when it came to him, he was basically the only one who insisted on this career. As for the other members of the Gong Sun family, they had already turned their attention to other projects, so they didn't pay much attention to it. Therefore, in the entire Gong Sun family, only he knew the technology of Sky City. Fortunately, he was already halfway to success. When the origin energy thruster was created, Nangong Wuji's inspiration completely exploded. In the process, he even worshipped Gong Sun Li as his master. If it weren't for Nangong Wuji's talent, Gong Sun Li wouldn't have agreed to Nangong Wuji's request. After all, Nangong Wuji was indeed a little old. But fortunately, Nangong Wuji's passion for learning seemed to be more than the cultivation of origin energy. The first origin energy thruster appeared. Soon, a new batch of origin energy thrusters appeared. Later, the entire Fog Snow Alchemy sect became the research place of Gong Sun Li and the others. In the blink of an eye, another 2 years had passed. The first batch of 5,000 origin energy thrusters had been manufactured and put into the experiment. 2 years had passed. The experiment was carried out on a small mountain. When Li Tianqing found out about it, he immediately found a mountain peak outside. Then, with a slash of his sword, he chopped down the mountain peak. The diameter alone was more than 1,500 feet. The diameter of the sunset peak was 1,500 feet. This was the place that was going to be flattened. From this position, the sunset peak would be sent to the sky. Now, the stairway to heaven had begun to be excavated. It was on the 4 sides of the mountain that these connected stairs were built. It was as if they were climbing a mountain. This 150 feet tall mountain was still hovering 1,000 meters above the ground. Every day when the researchers woke up, the first thing they did was to check if the floating mountain had fallen. This lasted for 2 whole years. It's a success. The current 3rd-generation origin energy thruster is the most stable one. Each origin energy thruster is independent. Even if one of them has a problem, it can be replaced at any time. The 1,500-foot tall mountain required 5,000 origin energy thrusters. In that case, a total of 100,000 origin energy thrusters would be needed to travel a distance of 1,500 feet. This was because the height and weight of the origin energy thrusters were different. The White Deer Mansion probably didn't expect this project to be so expensive. Fortunately, Li Zongjio wasn't short of money at all. At the same time, the White Deer Mansion had sealed up this technology. If you wanted to use it, you had to buy it from the White Deer Mansion. The dealership was also given to Song Jae-yu. It was another big project. The dealership of the Origin Energy Thruster alone made Song Jae-yu the richest person in the Qingyan dynasty. Of course, the White Deer Mansion was an exception. Whether it was a flying boat, a battleship, or even some Origin energy weapons, the thruster was extremely valuable. In addition, The White Deer Mansion said that even if you didn't use it for the time being, you had to buy it and store it. Anyway, you had to pay for it. When Gong Sun Li announced this news, the entire research institute was in an uproar. The stability of the third-generation thruster meant that they could move on to the next step. The Sky City Research Institute's research was still ongoing. Li Zongjio didn't care about this good news. He would tell him when the Sunset Peak was sent to the sky. At this moment, Li Zongjio and Qi Yanran had received an official invitation to come to Qiankuan Sacred City to participate in the national school competition. The first competition. Chapter 1534. Since it was the first competition, of course, the Tianzong Academy had to pay great attention to it. It had been 5 years since the establishment of the Tianzong Academy. Finally, the first competition had arrived. In the Tianzong Academy, the total academic year was a total of 9 years. If you were talented enough, you didn't even need to pay any tuition fees during these 9 years. If you were hardworking enough, you could get the first place in your department at the end of every semester. You could even get a lot of rewards. Not only did you not need to spend money, but you could also earn money. As long as you were talented enough and hardworking enough, you would have countless opportunities to earn money in the Tianzong Academy. Now, in the Xinggu continent, there were many top academies. The most famous one was naturally the Tianzong Academy. But the Four Seas Academy, the Royal Academy, and the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, all of them possessed considerable strength. However, the Purple Pill Academy was gradually heading towards decline. This was also an inevitable result because there wasn't much power behind it to support it. In addition, alchemy masters were gradually appearing, and their standards had improved greatly. If the Purple Pill Academy didn't have the help of the Heavenly Pill Pavilion, it would have been gone long ago. Isn't this Azure Ocean Academy very powerful? I remember this academy was also very famous in the past. Qiankuan Sacred City. A man and a woman dressed in ordinary clothes were walking on the street. The man was holding a paper bag in his hand, and the paper bag was filled with snacks. The woman was holding a big cotton candy in her hand. This cotton candy was directly made into the shape of a rabbit. Different colored syrups were used to decorate the rabbit's expression, and it looked very cute. However, the woman holding the cotton candy looked pure and refined. At first glance, one might not notice her, but even a slight glance was enough to leave an indelible impression in one's mind. The Academy Master of the Azure Ocean Academy was killed by me. Do you think the Azure Ocean Academy can continue to operate? Li Zongjio couldn't help but say. These words didn't sound like a joke. Killed? When did this happen? Qi Yanran was also surprised. Then she took a bite of the cotton candy. Even the coldest girl would not be able to resist the temptation when she saw the cotton candy and would buy one to eat. The Azure Ocean Academy was founded by the Devouring Yuan clan. When you were injured, you dragged them out. Naturally, you can't let them go. These people from the Devouring Yuan clan want to learn the abilities of the human race to deal with the human race. They have ulterior motives. Li Zongjio held a big bag of snacks in his arms. These were the things that Qi Yanran would eat when she watched the game later. It seemed that after that inheritance, Qi Yanran had gradually turned on her foodie mode. She liked to try these fresh little delicacies, and her mouth often couldn't stop. Fortunately, Li Zongjio had a lot of money in his pocket, so the food didn't cost much. What about the current Pine Tree Academy? Pine Tree Academy was an academy that had just emerged 2 years ago, and this academy was also very formidable. It actually had the support of an untainted land sect. Therefore, Pine Tree Academy had quickly become one of the top academies. Li Zongjio didn't refuse. There must be many hidden sects in the untainted land, but Li Zongjio didn't have time to pay attention to them. If he opened more academies, it would be of great help to the young people on this continent. It was impossible to open academies and then keep suppressing others. This method was too despicable for Li Zongjio. However, he heard that Pine Tree Academy was aggressive and seemed to want to compete with Tianzong Academy. Of course, there were other top academies, but they were not listed one by one. After all, this was an era of talents. Young Master Guo, what do you think of that girl? Among the crowd, there were several well-dressed young men gathered together. At the same time, they looked at Qi Yanran with a very presumptuous look. Although Qi Yanran had reached the state of returning to her natural state and her aura was restrained, her temperament was irresistible. Qi Yanran, who seemed to be ordinary, was targeted by people at first glance. No matter when, there was no shortage of such playboys. The man called young Master Guo also looked over. When he saw Qi Yanran for the first time, his eyes widened. I even thought of the name of my future child. Immediately, young Master Guo waved his hand and led his brothers to break through the crowd. He came in front of Li Zongjiu and Qi Yanran. They surrounded the two of them. There were 8 people in the other party. Sister, you're not a local, right? Guo Renjie came in front of Qi Yanran and paced back and forth. He also kept looking at Qi Yanran in front of him. As for Li Zongjiu, who was holding a pile of food, he was naturally ignored. At least in the eyes of others, Li Zongjiu should be just a bodyguard. Are you flirting with me? Qi Yanran looked at the playboy in front of her. They were usually cultivating, so they rarely went out. Moreover, they were either in the sacred Flame Royal City or the Sunset City. As the local residents, they basically knew the couple. After all, the two of them often went out to the market to buy vegetables. At first, it was very strange, but later it was not strange. This was heaven and earth's sacred city. It was a place where imperial power resided. For Li Zongjiu, who was extremely unreliable, the imperial tutor, it was deliberately weakened. No one would believe that the dignified imperial tutor and the imperial tutor's wife were walking on the street like ordinary people. No matter how you looked at it, the two of them were just ordinary people. Even if some rich young ladies deliberately dressed up, their clothes could be changed. Sometimes, they would inadvertently reveal some jewelry, even the hairpin on their head, any one of them would be priceless. Guo Renjie had looked at it carefully just now. There was nothing valuable on Qi Yanran's body. She only had 2 yuan or 3 yuan. Moreover, she was eating very cheap cotton candy. How could a young lady from a rich family eat such things? Moreover, Guo Renjie often walked on this street, so he could see clearly what kind of woman she was and what kind of situation she was in. He did not expect to meet such a high-quality goods on the street today. Sister, you're quite proactive. Don't worry, your brother Guo is a good person. I happen to have 2 tickets for the national school tournament, first-class seats. You're here to watch the tournament, right? Not everyone can get first-class seats. Guo Renjie said confidently. Oh, you happen to have 2 tickets? Qi Yanran looked at Guo Renjie and asked. Yes, I don't know if sister can do me the honor? Guo Renjie said. Why don't you give us both tickets? Li Zongjiu said at this time. It interrupted Guo Renjie's beautiful fantasy. Chapter 1535. When Guo Renjie heard Li Zongjiu's words, his face darkened. How dare you? Can't you see that our masters are talking? How dare you interrupt as a mere follower? If you are a member of my Guo family, I will pull out all your teeth today. Guo Renjie said fiercely. Such a small follower would not dare to make trouble after being scared. Why don't you take a look at your status? First-class seats are second only to VIP seats. Just this ticket alone costs at least 500,000 purple yuan. Have you seen more than 100,000 purple yuan with your poor appearance? The followers at the side also joined in, wanting to use this method to boost Guo Renjie's prestige. Guo Renjie smiled viciously. These brothers of his were indeed very loyal. Your surname is Guo? Qi Yanran looked at Guo Renjie in front of her with a surprised look. Guo Renjie said proudly. That's right, master. Yes, I am Guo Renjie. Let me tell you a secret. The current governor of the 2 armies of the Xingyan dynasty, Guo Longquan, is my father. Guo Renjie said. There was also a proud expression on his face. Governor of 2 armies. This status was not simple. In recent years, there were often some disturbances. In addition, they had to oversee and deal with the Abyss tribe. Therefore, many people who had outstanding military achievements were directly promoted. For example, this Guo Longquan also appeared 2 years ago. He had accumulated enough military achievements to directly become the governor of 2 armies, leading 100,000 troops. It could be said that he was in high spirits. Most importantly, this Guo Longquan was also the person who was supported by the current Emperor Xingyan personally. It was said that they had cooperated in the past. When the City of Chaos was suppressed, it was this Guo Longquan who helped. It was indeed very normal to bring him out and train him well. Guo Renjie had such a father. In Qin Kuan's sacred city, as long as you did not offend the emperor's sister, you would be fine. As long as you did not offend Emperor Xingyan, his father would appear and settle any problems. After all, Emperor Xingyan was only 23 years old now, and he did not even have an empress. Not to mention children. Of course, Guo Renjie had no chance to offend Emperor Xingyan. Therefore, there was nothing to be afraid of in this city. Naturally, he could get whatever he wanted. If that's the case, aren't you afraid that his status will make your father kneel? Qi Yanran couldn't help but say. At the same time, she looked at Guo Renjie with a puzzled look. At present, the strength of Li Zongjiu and his wife had reached the peak of perfection. There was nothing in the world that could hurt them, unless there was an expert of the celestial realm. In that case, they had to be careful. However, there were still many people who did not have the same strength as them. Therefore, there would always be people who would bully the weak. If he hadn't met them, he naturally wouldn't have seen them. But since he had met them today, he naturally had to intervene. After all, Qi Yanran's current realm was also different. She was quite disgusted with this kind of person. It was unknown how many good girls had been harmed by such a playboy. Guo Renjie and the others heard Qi Yanran's words. At first, they were stunned. Then, they looked carefully at Li Zongjiu, trying to find something unusual about Li Zongjiu. However, no matter how they looked, Li Zongjiu was just a follower. "Ha, little sister, are you scared out of your wits? This poor young man wants my father to kneel? Do you know that your words not only hurt him, but also hurt yourself?" Guo Renjie's eyes gradually became cold. Then he looked at Qi Yanran in front of him. He waved his hand. "Guards, these 2 people slandered the officials of the imperial court in the street. Take them down and send them directly to the celestial prison." This was also a method that Guo Renjie often used. No matter who you were, as long as you were caught in the celestial prison, you would become very obedient. Even if you had a bad temper, you had to put it away when you were in the celestial prison. And it was one of Guo Renjie's privileges to send people to the celestial prison. Because Guo Renjie was the inspector of the celestial prison, it could be considered a good position. There was a lot of money in the celestial prison, so Guo Renjie's life was quite comfortable. "Isn't it just the celestial prison? I'll go with you. You don't have to do anything," Li Zongjiu said. If he didn't do anything, he would be protecting these people. After all, although these young people helped the tyrant, they were still children and could be taught. After they were locked in the celestial prison, they would be well behaved after a good beating. There was nothing to worry about. Hearing that Li Zongjiu was actually so obedient, Guo Renjie and the others were also a little surprised. Under normal circumstances, who didn't want to die? There were even some who resisted arrest. In that case, even if you were really innocent, it would be even more difficult to clear your name now. Since he was willing to go with them, they would directly take him away and see what kind of ability these people had. In the celestial prison, even if you were a dragon, you had to coil up. Guo Renjie had this kind of confidence. Under the lead of Guo Renjie and the others, Li Zongjiu and Qi Yanran also came in front of the celestial prison. "My lord, these 2 are?" When the guards in charge of the prison saw Guo Renjie and his men, they couldn't help but stare blankly. At the same time, they looked at each other. Something big was happening in the city. Usually, when something good happened, they didn't like to see this kind of situation. Why did you have to choose this time? Moreover, these 2 people weren't simple at first glance. Although they didn't dress well, their temperament was very good. They made people not dare to look directly at them. These 2 guards of the celestial prison had some experience. "These 2 people insulted my father on the street. Lock them up and beat them up. See if they are spies sent by the neighboring countries to deliberately discredit my father," Guo Renjie said. The two prison guards hesitated. Take this man down and beat him. As for this woman, I want to interrogate her personally, Guorenjia said. He had long been accustomed to doing some things in this exclusive prison cell. Moreover, it really had a different flavor. Is this the place where you flaunt your power and harm the people? Ask the most powerful person in the celestial prison to come out. Qi Yanran glanced at the celestial prison. There was an extremely strong resentment inside. How many people were directly arrested under the circumstances of being wrongly accused? Flaunt my power? Ha, little sister, it's your first day out. Today, your brother Guo will tell you what is called the sinister world. Tie them up. Chapter 1536. Li Zongjio was directly tied up by the other party. After all, Li Zongjio didn't resist much. Guorenjia saw Li Zongjio obediently submit and sneered. He thought that Li Zongjio had some kind of earth-shattering move, or some kind of unknown identity that would make people's jaws drop. But now, it seems that he was just a piece of trash. Guorenjia didn't know how many of these kinds of people who only knew how to talk. It would be interesting if they were caught and thrown into prison. Are you sure you won't regret it? Li Zongjio looked at Guorenjia and said. The current Li Zongjio had already seen too much of the vicissitudes of life. In fact, Li Zongjio didn't want to bother with these ants. When he was young and impetuous, he directly attacked when he didn't like the situation. But now, it was different. Li Zongjio didn't want to attack anymore. He just wanted the latter to realize his mistake. But from the current situation, the latter didn't seem to realize it at all. Regret? I've never known how to write the word regret in my entire life. Guorenjia laughed. Obviously, in his eyes, Li Zongjio was almost an idiot. However, before Guorenjia had time to send people to escort Li Zongjio to the prison, a group of people came from afar. How dare you? It was the commander of the Vermilion Bird Army, Su Mo. When Emperor Xingyan knew that Li Zongjio and his wife had come to Qiankuan's sacred city, he had already sent people to welcome them. He even personally waited outside the competition hall. If it was someone else, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Even if you were a teacher, you wouldn't be treated so well. But Li Zongjio couldn't be judged by common sense. Emperor Xingyan had been on the throne for so many years, and he knew very well why he could sit on the throne so peacefully. It was because he did his best for the people, and at the same time he never provoked the Li family. They even gave the Li family extremely generous treatment. They never dared to look down on anyone from the Li family. That was why he was able to sit firmly on the throne. Even the Li family had broken the law. He never cared about it. It was always a special way to deal with it. If a member of the Li family made a mistake, of course, it would be the Li family's fault. Outsiders would not dare to interfere. No one dared to offend the Li family. Of course, the Li family itself had done a very good job and had never overstepped their authority. As the saying goes, well water does not interfere with river water. This point was also worthy of being imitated by the other clans. If the Li family took the lead in rebelling, the entire Xingyan dynasty might really change hands. However, Su Mo didn't receive any news related to Li Zongjio entering the city. Su Mo immediately knew that Li Zongjio was very likely to have entered the city. According to the usual routine, he would often encounter all kinds of troublesome things. Therefore, Su Mo also asked people to pay close attention to the big and small affairs in the city. Sure enough, he found Guorenjia immediately. Therefore, he hurriedly brought people over, and at the same time, he also asked people to bring Guolongquan over. Of all things, he had to offend Li Zongjio. Now, this matter wouldn't be so easy to solve. General Su, what do you mean by this? When did the Imperial Guards manage the Heavenly Army's heavenly prison? Could it be that General Su wants to seize power? Guorenjia had been drooling over Su Mo for a long time. However, the latter's identity wasn't simple and his strength wasn't simple either. Basically, he was someone that Guorenjia couldn't obtain no matter how hard he tried. However, the more it was like this, the more Guorenjia wanted to obtain him. Could it be that the heavens were really helping him today? Could it be that happiness had come too suddenly? Now that he finally had the chance to talk to Su Mo, he would definitely have to grind it out for a while. If it was anyone else, they would naturally be frightened by the name of the Vermilion Bird Army. However, Guorenjie wasn't afraid, because his father really did have the newest Green Dragon Army in his hands. Of the two armies, one of them was the Azure Dragon Army, which was feared by everyone. When the Hua family's power was gradually weakened, Guo Longquan took advantage of the situation. With Emperor Xingyan's support and favor, he was finally able to sit firmly in the first position of the Green Dragon Army. If it was anyone else, they might be frightened by Su Mo's identity. Unfortunately, in Guorenjie's eyes, it was nothing at all. General, you've come at the right time. This person claims to be the owner of the heavenly prison. In this city, he can imprison whoever he wants. Is there any reason for that? Qi Yanran and Su Mo naturally knew each other. During the meeting of the three dynasties, Qi Yanran was very familiar with Su Mo. Moreover, Su Mo was also Li Zongjiu's good friend. Su Mo wanted to directly salute Li Zongjiu. However, Li Zongjiu gently shook his head at him. Su Mo immediately understood. He wanted to properly clean up the family. Detoxifying the poison in Qingquan's sacred city wasn't a bad thing. Su Mo was also very clear about Guorenjie's notoriety. What's going on? Tell me. Su Mo looked at Guorenjie in front of him and gave him a chance to speak. Anyway, this guy wouldn't be alive for too long. What do you mean what's going on? General Su, listen to my advice. Although the heavenly prison belongs to the Ministry of War, it has always been under the command of the great emperor. Those who are imprisoned here are likely to be rebels. Could it be that General Su wants to interfere and take away these two criminals who are plotting against the dynasty? Guorenjie saw that the situation wasn't right. If he didn't put a big hat on Su Mo, he probably wouldn't be able to control this woman. Originally, Su Mo was the leader of the Imperial Guards. He should be the most trusted subordinate of the Sacred Flame Great Emperor. However, Su Mo often dared to speak bluntly. Sometimes, he even dared to openly disobey the Sacred Flame Great Emperor's order. This made people puzzled. What exactly did Su Mo rely on to be so rampant? You didn't answer my question and put a hat on my head. Slap him. Su Mo looked at Guorenjie and said indifferently. First, he would beat Guorenjie up and let Li Zongjiu vent his anger. Two Vermilion Bird soldiers immediately stepped forward. One of them pierced through Guorenjie's hands with his spear and locked them behind his back. The other person stepped forward and slapped him. Slap. Instantly, two front teeth flew out along with fresh blood. When the heavenly prison guards saw that their lord was beaten, they naturally let out a series of gongs and drums. A large group of heavenly prison guards immediately surrounded the Vermilion Bird soldiers. After all, it was the Vermilion Bird soldiers who attacked first. Everyone belonged to different systems. Although they were all soldiers, they were under different orders. Naturally, there was no need to be polite. Su Mo, how dare you slap me? Blood flowed out of Guorenjie's mouth. Release the Lord Inspector. When the heavenly prison guards saw that the other party was the Vermilion Bird soldiers, they immediately cursed in their hearts. This Guorenjie really knows how to provoke. Is he fucking blind? Since the Vermilion Bird soldiers had personally appeared, how could they not see that Li Zongjiu and Su Mo's identities were definitely not ordinary? However, they couldn't get off the tiger now. After all, the heavenly prison couldn't lose face. Although the Vermilion Bird soldiers had a high position in the Imperial Guards, they were only responsible for the safety of the Imperial Palace. They didn't care about the heavenly prison. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.